a few special motions first before we can get underway. I apologize, it's a little bit cumbersome, but it is what it is. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by the Freedom of Information Act, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each of the members of this ARB participating in this meeting are coming in from separate locations, we have to verify that the quorum of members is participating is able to hear each other's voice audibly and clear and in an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call, and I will ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name, location, where you're participating from, and please pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your colleagues. Following the roll call, we will vote to establish that each member can hear each other. All right, we start first and foremost with Ms. Michelle Aubrey.
This is Michelle Aubrey. I can hear everyone fine. I'm at my residence in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Next, Mr. Burns.
This is John Burns. I'm in my living room in Holland Hills in Alexandria, and I can hear everyone and see everyone just fine.
All right, Ms. Camblin. Do not see her on the roster right now, so we will mark her currently as absent. All right, I am Christopher Daniel, Chairman of Architecture Review Board. I am coming in from my home in Reston, Virginia. Ms. Samantha Wan.
Good evening. This is Samantha Huang. I'm joining the meeting from Reston, my home. I can hear everyone so far. So good.
All right, Mr. Steve Kalinsky.
It's Steve Kalinsky. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia in my office. I could hear everybody. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Elise Murray.
This is Elise Murray. I'm in my residence in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you, Elise. Ms. Knockins is absent. Unexcused. Ms. Orr.
This is Kay Orr. I'm at my residence in Alexandria, Virginia.
All right, thank you, Ms. Orr. Mr. Plumpy.
Hi, this is Joe Plumpy. I'm in my residence in the English Hills in Fairfax Station in my home office. I can hear and see everybody excellently. Thank you.
All right, and as we start with A, we go to Z with Mr. Zellman.
Good evening, this is Jason Zellman. I'm at my home in Burke, Virginia, and I can hear and see everyone just fine.
All right, thank you very much. At this point, I'm going to pass my virtual gavel to the Vice Chairman, Mr. Zellman, so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Huang. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right, as determined by the roll call, 9 members of this ARB are present and therefore satisfy the ARB quorum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, the type of electronic communication that is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend such a meeting. And as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely and practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through Microsoft Teams, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB County website or through phone at 1-571-429-5982 with the access code 318-308-631. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Plumpy. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
It is next required that all matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required and necessary to continue the operations and discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I think I got Mr. Kalinsky first. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Last, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be allowed to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after each consent agenda item and after each action item as is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Huang. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. And I return the gavel to the chairman.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Chairman. All right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we move into a few more housekeeping items, virtual meeting Teams information. Denise, would you like to go through those items, please?
Yes, thank you. So this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Attendees may email me during the meeting or use the chat function in the Teams platform for inquiries. Staff will monitor and respond accordingly. If you're calling in and wish to make a public comment, please indicate so by raising your hand, pressing *5 at the appropriate time, and I will unmute you.
All right, thank you so much, Denise. With that out of the way, we then traditionally kick off our ARB meetings with a reading of the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Since I, in my chaos, have not asked if any member will do so, I will gladly read it aloud. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas and individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses that will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping of the character of what is to be preserved and enhanced. All right, with that out of the way, a few housekeeping items from me. Obviously, the order in which items will be heard will be set during the meeting when we approve the agenda. Additional items will be added at my discretion or at a motion by one of the other members. I will remind applicants that are up for items for action that if you are here for a new submission, we ask that you keep your presentation to 8 minutes for a first submission and 3 minutes for a resubmission. We have had the materials submitted to us in advance, so all the ARB members had a chance to review your materials. So I would encourage you to focus on the overarching strokes of the application, as well as any changes that may have occurred if you've been here for a workshop session. With that in mind, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda or to modify it as any member would see appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next, we go on to introduction and recognition of guests on the approved agenda. Denise, do we have any guests that we need to recognize?
No, not that I see of.
Thank you, Denise. Next, we go on to our consent calendar action items. So those are items that are not coming up for presentation and are just up for member action, though we still do allow public comment. So what I would ask is if there is any member of the public that does have a comment on the item that is in here for consent action, please indicate as Denise suggested by raising your hand or by pressing *5. And for a moment, we'll keep the participant log open to see if there's anyone that's indicating they want to comment on this item. All right. I'm not seeing any. Denise, how about yourself?
No, neither am I.
All right. With that in mind, I would entertain a motion from any of the members regarding the consent calendar items.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve consent item ARB 23-SUL-01- Monument Sign as submitted and presented at the January 12th, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the minimum requirements of zoning ordinance 3101-historic overlay districts.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I got Mr. Kalinsky with the verbal, the visual, and Ms. Aubrey. All right, we have a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The action item is approved. To the applicant, Denise will get with you following the meeting regarding the approval. Thank you very much. With that, it takes us out of our items for consent and brings us into our items for action, which is obviously the most robust set we have for tonight. Again, I will just remind applicants that when your item comes up, Denise will give you the ability to present and speak, and you can pull up a presentation if you need it. And then if you are here for resubmission, to try to limit your presentation as best you can to 3 minutes. For the first item for action, we have ARB 23PHC01 Pohick Church accessibility ramp. This is for the Pohick Church located at 9301 Richmond Highway in Lorton, and it is to build an accessibility ramp to provide access to Pohick Church. Tony Harriman represents the application. Mr. Harriman, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. My name's Tony Harriman. I'm the junior warden at Pohick Church. Also with me on the call are our rector, the very Reverend Dr. Lynn Rinaldi, and also Peter Kind, who's the president of the Historic Pohick Church Foundation. And then finally, Mr. Kirk Parsons, who's a member of the architectural review firm, ETC, who I'll ask to present when it comes time to present the slides. We have come to you before in 2020, so I believe we're a second presentation, so we'll try to stick to 3 minutes. So if you'll elevate the people I mentioned as appropriate. And I am.
All right, we'll get Denise on that right away so we can get them up there to make their presentations. And I will acknowledge I am not a very strict adherer to our 3-minute timeline. We just, for the sake of everyone, I try to be as judicious as I can. But
everyone
thank
has
you
been elevated.
Yeah, Mr. Harriman, is there anybody that we're missing now? Because I think we have everybody up there.
I think we're okay. Reverend
Okay.
Lynn, you want to make any comments at this point? Okay, you should be seeing my screen.
yes, we are.
All right, and so this is the presentation. And so absent a comment from Reverend Lynn, Kirk, could you go ahead and begin briefing the slides, and I'll flip for you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. If we can probably scroll through to the next, it's just an overlay, a historic overlay of the property.
Excuse me, could you expand the size of the slides, please?
I think it's roughly 40 acres all told. Reverend Lynn can correct me. So it's a very long or large area. When you start to look at the area.
I think Ms. Murray was asking if you all could zoom in a little bit on the slides. It's hard.
Nope, that I can do.
That's what I think she was getting at, if possible.
How's that? Better. Sorry. Okay, so so the Pohick Church complex really is this area that is outlined in red on this particular image. Oops, it's too much. So it's this area here, bounded by Route 1 and then Old Colchester Road.
We'll probably go to the next slide.
I'm gonna- Okay. Then this is just a letter of our last submittal to you. We've already established that as a matter of record. And this is the existing building, as you can see it. And then this is the proposed ramp, and I'll stop there for Mr. Parsons.
Okay, so our design intent was to obviously create an accessibility ramp that meets ADA requirements. So we had dimensions and slope requirements and things of that nature to consider. We also looked at 2 access points, given the layout of the parking for the property. So there, if you can look in the rendering, you can see the 2 access points coming from both sides of the building. We also looked at trying to be visually compatible with the existing building. And so to do that, we used a combination of masonry that would be similar to what is the masonry in the building with a stone cap, similar to, again, the stone elements within the building. Our ramp is not greater than 30 inches in height, so we do not need to have guardrail protection. We do need to have handrail protection or handrail capability. So if you notice in the rendering, the railing components are predominantly there for handrail ability. We also are going to salvage and where we can, the stone for the stairs that are there. The handicap or the accessibility ramp will impact some of the existing stone stairs. So we're going to recycle and reuse those where we can to move those into the front where we have concern there. If you notice too, in the masonry wall that comprises the ramp, we limited the height of that ramp to, again, make it as, kind of inconspicuous, if you will, that we can. So we didn't make it big and bulky. We do have the railings there, but we tried to minimize the height of the wall to deal with that issue. The construction of the ramp is predominantly concrete floor, brick masonry walls with a stone cap, and then painted steel handrails, as we mentioned. I don't know if we want to go to the next slide there, Tony. Again, just a different view, kind of a more straight-on view of the proposed ramp. So then this is a view from a plan view of the proposed ramp and some sections. So there's an existing landing that comes out of the church. We're going to basically maintain that. The ramp is going to come up to that and then extend to the right and to the left in this drawing to accommodate the access. The section to the left here is kind of how this will be constructed, and it shows the ramp as well. I mean, the handrail. The handrail will be located on the inside of the walls to facilitate handrail graspability. We have requirements there to meet that, so we've put that on the inside as opposed to on the top to have to create, so that if we put it on the top, we'll have to create inserts. So we designed it with being on the inside of the wall. Up against the building, we're providing the ability to control water, so we don't have an issue with water along between the new ramp and the building. Maybe go to the next. I think we get to some individual details.
Hey, Joe, I see you have your hand up. Is that for a question in a little bit or for right now?
Question when he's done. I don't want to interrupt the
Okay, gotcha.
presentation.
I'll
Sorry.
track it for when we get to comments.
Thank you.
Again, this is just, again, an elevation of the handrail in relation to the wall and the ramp. It will be a hammered painted finish, so we're trying to kind of minimize that, the impact of that rail, but we have to keep the 1.5 inch requirement. So there'll be, that is what is proposed to be that the handrail will be made out of. Again, the salvaged steps that we will reuse there. Again, just another section of the ramp showing the wall, how the wall will be constructed, and then the concrete floor as well. That floor will comprise the ramp going from the grade up to the existing landing.
That's the
Detail,
last, I believe.
yeah, the detail also shows there a clearance of the width of the ramp of 38 inches. Trying to keep, again, a clearance for access to and from.
Okay, I guess the question would be is,
our presentation.
all right. With that in mind, the next question would be if there are any members of the public who have a comment on this application. So just like before, I'll ask if there are any members of the public who would indicate via raising their hand or pressing *5.
Hello, this is Lynn Rinaldi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lynn, we can.
Okay, I'm Reverend Lynn Rinaldi. I'm rector of Pohick Church, and we just want to say thank you so much for all of your input, both in past years and now. We feel like we've come a long way and towards making a aesthetically pleasing and historically accurate rendition, and we value every bit of your input and your recommendations, and we're ready to build this, hopefully this new ramp, because we see it as a sign of Christian hospitality. We want to be accessible to all and still remain and maintain our historic viability. And we're very proud to be a monument to our fathers like George Washington and George Mason in the corridor. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Reverend. I don't see any hands coming up in the chat, so I think I'll go to Mr. Plumpy, who had his hand up first for a question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I had a real quick question, and I'm trying to navigate on my own computer to different drawings, but I'm going to have you maybe go to just a couple of reverse slides in your presentation that the one elevation, this is more in the specification drawings, the black and white drawings, the architectural drawings. Can you go to the side elevation, please, that show the entire length of the ramp and handrail combined together? Yeah, that one. What's interesting is, and what's, oops, the top rail and the middle rail before, I'm assuming that's the middle rail, right? You have a top rail and there's a middle rail, and then the top of the wall. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The question is why, and maybe what we're missing is the line of the ramp is I guess does the top of the wall that you created to conceal the ramp parallel to the slope of the ramp itself?
Yes, that should be, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Because what's interesting, then the railing heights vary in height. You mean that the top rail should be parallel then to the top of your wall, as opposed to right now it's at, it doesn't read that way. And then I was wondering if it's a graphic error.
Yes, I think so. I think
so. Both those lines, I'm sorry, both those horizontal lines should be parallel to your ramp.
Yeah,
and
the top of the wall extends above the floor of the ramp 8 inches, just
typically all the way down. Typically all the way down. So therefore the metal rails would be that. So the metal horizontal railings will be the same thing, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So one would think that the one on the far left is the true height of the railing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. And then also is The entire length of the ramp is what? I don't see that. I just see the, I was just wondering, you said it was a 30-inch rise that you're trying to accommodate.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, it's somewhere it's less than 30 inches, and I think it's like 24. Yeah, 24 inches tall. So our ramp length is 24 feet. So our slope is 1 in 12 to comply with the.
All right, that was my one question, because I don't see that. All right, and I think that's the key thing. I'm assuming that the water will just run straight down the ramp. It's you're not shutting off on the one side. There's no weep holes or anything. So is this ramp right up against the building facade, existing building facade, or is there an offset from the building facade to the other wall that we can't see, which is the back side of the ramp?
There is an offset. We have a section that shows. I think if you go back to there it is, right there.
Okay, I see it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's where we're the space between the inner wall and the building wall. We're controlling moisture and that sort of thing.
Got it. Okay.
Open graded stone with a weep hole type perforated.
Understood.
Type. Yep.
Okay, that's fine. And then, are you proposing any landscape around anything in the future? I didn't see a landscape plan, or maybe I did not look far enough in the things that we've received. Is there a landscape plan to look at or not?
Sir, there is a landscape plan, and probably the best way to envision right now is just one of the pictures that we provided. And because the original did not have landscaping at the base.
Okay, which I was hoping that would be a case, a minimalist type approach, because you're trying to keep that historical presence as it used to be. I think before there was boxwoods there or something like that, but it sounds like you're just going to keep it very minimalist, maybe low ground cover or something. Or
yes, sir. You can see this look mirrors the existing look, and this boxwood that you see over on the left.
Yeah, it's off the end. Okay, got it.
That will go away because we need it.
Oh, that will go away. That's a shame, because that's your landing point of the walkway.
It's the landing point of the walkway, but still there'll be some other landscaping. There's some boxwoods here that you can't see. So
okay, gotcha. So in that area in front of the wall, is that just gravel you're proposing?
It's a minimal amount of gravel, because it's mostly, if you look at it from the top, it's this existing, I don't know what you call it, it's brick
paver walkway.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, would you want to put some, again, this is aesthetic decision. I'm not supposed to go this far, but I'm just saying, like, gravel could be kind of harsh. You got paver, gravel, you just put a non-invasive ground cover there, and it may be better on both sides. So does it so harsh on either side? Just thinking out loud, but at least on the front side of the wall. That's all I wanted to really comment on. And do you need to remove that one boxwood on the left? Because that's a very old boxwood, and it kind of gives character to the front of the elevation there. Is it right at is it beyond the landing point, or is it in with the landing at the ramp on the left?
Actually, if you can see my pointer, sir,
yeah, I see it.
Okay, so the boxwood that's there is.
Can we keep it?
That boxwood we can keep.
Okay. Because that's the only one I see in your photograph. That's the only one I see in your photograph. The one on this left.
Let me go back there so we can talk better.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, good thing, existing condition. Looks like there's no boxwood that would impede your landing there. Right where the flagpole is on the left.
That's correct. There's a boxwood behind it along the western wall.
So I mean, I know I'm the landscape architect on the board, and that box is probably 7,500 years old, whatever it is, So it'd be great to keep that historical landscape intact.
If you go back to the plan, we're assuming that you're going to come off the ramp and turn back towards the brick pavered walkway. So that we're not extending straight out. It's you come down the ramp, you have a landing, and you turn 90 degrees. So that would help us to keep that box.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions at this time. Sorry to be so belaboring on the drawings and so forth. That's all good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Ms. Albury, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The plan is actually very elegant in its simplicity, and I like the symmetrical nature of it. The one thing I am having a hard time understanding, though, is because it doesn't appear in the drawings, is there going to be excavation for any kind of foundation underneath the ramp? Because this ramp is being, and the two areas of gravel are essentially being put right on top of what would have been the original builder's trench of the structure. And there could be quite an amazing amount of archaeological material connected with the construction and later periods in that area. So I'm just wondering, you know, if there is excavation, how deep would it go? And have you maybe spoken with the Fairfax County Park Authority's Archaeological Collections Branch to get their input on any, you know, kind of archaeological work that might be recommended before this project is commenced?
So there will be excavation. If you notice in this drawing here, the two components that are those concrete footings, those will be down, the top of which was about 30 inches below the grade. So there will be probably about 3 to 4 feet of excavation in those two locations. There will be some adding of grade to form the slope of the ramp. So as you get closer to the landing, there will be spoils and such brought into that area to provide a substrate for the concrete slab to sit on. The concrete slab that forms the ramp will be a slab on grade. It will be supported by the soil.
And as far as the archaeological, have you spoken with anybody at the Archaeology and Collections Branch?
We have not, no, but we can.
I mean, I am concerned about any excavation that would take place without having clearance, you know, from their office. And I mean, I can envision maybe several alternatives that you might on how this could be approached. One might be to have an archaeological monitor, someone that meets the Secretary of Interior standards, have them be present during the excavation so that they could see what is there. But I think the preferred way of dealing with it would be to have an archaeological survey, or not really a survey, but having some data recovery taking place, having the area excavated by archaeologists down to the bottom of the point of your planned excavation, rather than having construction people doing the excavation, of having archaeologists do the excavation, because it's just as too the chances of having material there of significance is very high.
Yep. We clearly understand that. That's a great point. Yep.
In the drawings, you noted in the drawings.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Burns, I saw your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is related to the same one that Michelle brought before us, and that is when you're constructing this ramp, those are good, modern, robust foundations you're putting in to support the walls that flank the ramp itself, and you're coming up to an existing landing, and I rather suspect that landing's foundation isn't as robust as the one you're proposing for the ramp because it's much older. And so how are you going to effectuate that joint so that you don't have one thing working against the other, and that the nice firmly founded ramp doesn't damage the existing historic landing?
Yeah. So our plan is to not, so the new wall is going to extend up to the existing landing, not onto the existing landing. If you notice in this drawing, we're on here, if you zoom into the lower elevation drawing, Tony, our railing will extend past, but our the wall will not. So it's going to, so the existing stairs kind of angle out away from the building. So this drawing kind of shows more how the stairs kind of meander past, but the actual landing itself, our wall is going just to it, not onto it. So
okay,
the
and it will be a butt joint between the existing landing and the ramp coming up to it?
That is correct. So the wall
Okay.
will be separately supported and not connected to it. So it can move somewhat separate. We're not expecting a lot of movement, but if we were to have, as you said, that the landing set, you know, maybe not as robust of a footing or a support, then we might have some differential movement there. So we are counting on that.
Okay, just something to keep your eye out for. Thank you.
Nope, good point. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Denise, this is a question on my end. Isn't a heritage resource study required for any of these that require excavation? And so wouldn't that have had to have happened?
You mean the archaeology study?
Yes, the archaeology study.
Yeah, I just, so I'll read from the zoning ordinance. To further the purpose of the HODs and to aid in the identification and protection of historic and archaeological resources located within or in the vicinity of an HOD, the Fairfax County Park Authority archaeologist must be consulted concerning rezonings, development plans, special exceptions, special permits, or variance applications on a property that is located wholly or partially within or contiguous to an HOD, and when the application involves 200 to 2,500 square feet or more of land disturbing activity. So I don't know that this has a minor site plan. I do not believe that this has a minor. I do not believe it meets the 2,500 square feet of land disturbing activity.
That was going to be my next question with that item right there. Okay. So I think the other members, particularly Ms. Albury and Mr. Burns, have valuable points, particularly regarding the potentiality of encountering archaeological materials. And so it would be obviously helpful and beneficial if the church sought the input of the county archaeologist on this and maybe some guidance on that, as Ms. Aubrey has advised. And that would be something that I think would be really helpful given the potentiality of encountering something while work is occurring, sheerly because of the location we're talking about. That's my only comment. I would look to see if there are any other members that have comments. Mr. Kalinsky, I see your hand up. Steve, can't hear you if you're talking.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's a very elegant solution. This is the sort of thing with such a important building that the ramp is held off. It's symmetrical. It solves the problem. So job well done. I think we're down to getting into the nitty-gritty details, and I have questions or concerns, or just want to point out, the footings of these ramps are going to possibly affect the building, not knowing how deep the foundation is on the building. Just careful attention needs to be paid so that the footing doesn't put a surcharge load onto the building wall, hitting it with lateral forces. So ideally, the footing depth equals the footing depth of the existing building, or something relatively close, because you are separated by about two feet or so from the new footing to the.
We acknowledge that for sure, and that's one of the reasons why we started the ramp out on the outside edge of the. If you look at this drawing here, the plan, we started the outside edge of the ramp as far out onto the landing as we could, so we stay as far away from the building wall as reasonably possible, and then we'll have to understand that the issue of wall and supporting the wall for the building and that sort of thing if we need to.
Okay, so so careful attention to that in the construction detailing and the construction itself. And the other question is, with regards to the brick, how do you intend to choose your brick?
Well, there's a couple ways we could do it. The most common way is we have, when the contractor is selected, we have them present a number of different styles and samples for us to select from. And so that is one possible way. Another is the most common. The other way would for us to kind of start to research that as part of the next step in the design phase and look to reach out to different brick manufacturers and such suppliers to kind of to show samples, to be able to select those. Same thing with the stone caps. We'll do a number of different things to try to kind of see what's available and make sure that we can match a fairly accurate representation of what is in the existing building wall.
Okay. Yeah, I suspect that that hand molded brick is probably not going to be readily available. So I think you're gonna got a bit of research on your, to be done to be able to figure out how to best complement that existing brick.
Yep, we understand that.
All right. Sure. Well, just as long as you're aware of that, and otherwise, very well. Very well done. This is what I'm happy to see. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Plumpy, your hand's back up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burns, Mr. Daniel, excuse me. I was going to say that, yes, compliments on the presentation design. Looks really good. Great. You mentioned a couple things here about the butt joining of the foundations, the ramp and the existing landing. Just make sure that's a good expansion joint, because you're all worried about water, so that it's a good joint that isn't just some sloppy caulk, because a lot of high heels may go up there or whatever. Just make sure that it works. That's, I'm not going to tell you how to detail it, but that's one of my concerns. What Mr. Colensi said too is about the brick choice too. Also go with the mortar, and also have your brick mason do a mock-up panel of your brick so that they know what they're doing. I'm assuming there's probably a grapevine joint in there, perhaps. I don't know the jointing on the building, but make sure that it all looks good. It doesn't have to, maybe the mortar gets almost matching it. Perhaps that's my suggestion, but the brick, perhaps is slightly different because you can't find it. And then the other thing you mentioned was you're sawing out the existing stone steps, and you were going to salvage those to some portion. Were you going to make some of the stone caps for the wall out of that? Have someone cut that? Is that what you're planning to do with those?
Possibly, but I think there's not enough of that to.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Stone. So so some of the stone, if we needed to, in the front steps that are remaining, if we need to replace some of those stones.
Gotcha. Okay.
We would use it for that.
See no more. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Burns, I saw your hand back up again as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates to the new materials. Normally, we ask for samples of the materials that are going to be used in a project to make sure that they are a reasonable and compatible match. And so I think that's something that we should think about asking for. I assume, are the existing steps Aquias stone?
I think so. Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing that you're not going to reopen that quarry. And so you're probably going to be using a different stone. And what will that stone be? And what can we learn about that stone? Or what can you tell us about that stone?
Well, our stone, since we're not going to be able to get exactly the same quarried stone, we're going to try to, we have a couple choices. One, we do a natural stone and try to match as closely as we can, or we do more of a cast product. We've worked with some historic folks in the past that can make cast different stone to kind of match as closely to what we have, at least from a color perspective and a texture perspective. And so we're still, that's one of the things that we're working to work towards, to make sure that cap matches as close to the stone as we can. If you look at it in this picture here, understanding this is a rendering, but the stone color is slightly different at the door as it is the stairs. So there's a couple different options we have in terms of matching that color.
Right, I agree that these are really excellent renderings that really give you pretty much a photographic visual simulation of what it will look like when completed. But the devil is in the details here. And so since we're having substitute materials, I think it would be appropriate to submit your recommended material, since you're saying it could be anyone, a number of different materials, and there's a range of colors, brick sizes, variations to try and simulate the irregularity of the historic brick. And that's all stuff that's unknown to us. And so I would recommend that if we pass a motion to approve this design, that we ask for an ability to review the mock-up that you want to propose as the finished materials that you will actually use in the project.
You okay with that?
Yes, absolutely. We're fine with that.
It would not be an elaborate review. It's just let's make sure we're still on the same page. That's all.
I forget who recommended the mock-up, but that certainly is something that we would do. Have a panel made up so that it's visible and can be kept to compare for as the project is being constructed. So.
And I might also note that 3 of the ARB members tonight are resident in the Mount Vernon district, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump down Route 1 to physically take a look at it if you get to the mock-up stage.
That'd be huge, actually.
Yeah, we would appreciate the input.
I was wondering if you were going to point that out, Mr. Burns. I saw a hand go up for a Mr. Kind for a moment ago. Was that someone who was a part of the group?
Yes, sir. It's Historic Poet Church Foundation. He's the director.
Yes, by all means, Mr. Kind, feel free to chime in.
We're not hearing you, sir.
All right, yeah, I'm not, he seems, Mr. Kind, you seem to be muted at the moment. Let's see if we can get you unmuted.
So I can elevate people, but I don't have the ability to unmute them. They have to unmute themselves. Mr. Kind, can you unmute your mic?
It'll be at the top of the screen.
There we go. Yeah. Yep, we got him.
I should know how to do this. I've done enough of these Teams meetings. Thank you for helping me on that. So I'm the president of the Historic Poet Church Foundation. Our job is to raise the money to do these improvements, but in that role and previous with the church have been well involved with it. With respect to the stone for the steps, we have already replaced on a much smaller scale a set of steps on the west side of the church. We went through the drill with the Aquia quarry, and you're right, we can't get it out of that. So what we have done is we found a firm in Ohio that provided one very close in appearance and everything to the one that we have. It was recommended to us by people who have installed it in several of the old architectural buildings in Alexandria, and that worked out very well. We're well pleased with that. So we think we have a good source for that one. And your points on the brick itself are well taken. We have some people that in the congregation that work with brick companies, and we're confident that we will be able to find some to do that, but we're very happy to show you. I assure you that we are as concerned with the appearance and the well-being of this as you are. We appreciate your input. You brought out some good points that we will pay attention to and follow. We are eager to move forward because this is the safety of our people. It's the safety of the visitors that we get. Pre-COVID, we were getting well over 1,000 people a year, plus a number of groups that bring their people here for tours and educational people that educate at home, bringing their children or their groups here. So we're serving the community with a church, and we want it to be safe and accessible for all.
Thank you, Mr. Kine. I'd only add one or two more observations. I think on top of our Mr. Burns' comments, that obviously when we take this item up for action, a member can add conditions to it. And I've heard a few things that could be applied as conditions. Obviously, a notification to the ARB of the proposed mock-up for the brick, perhaps requesting a submittal of the final selection of materials for particularly the stone step once the source is selected, so that can be filed with Denise, so we have it for our records as well, are two that I can think of. And I would still advocate for potentially contacting the Fairfax County Archaeology Department to seek their input on what might happen if you encounter something while this work is going forward. But those are my last parting observations. I don't see any other hands up from our members. So with that in mind, if there is a member that has a motion, I would obviously entertain one. And just remember, the chair can't make motions.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'll give it a crack.
All right, Mr. Burns, floor is yours.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23-PHC-01, located at 9301 Richmond Highway, Lorton, Virginia, 22079, tax map 1081010027 in the Bohick Church Historic Overlay District for the proposed construction of an accessibility ramp to provide access to Bohick Church, as submitted and presented at the January 12, 2023 ARB meeting. Subject to the following conditions: that the applicant will consult with the Fairfax County Park Authority concerning potential archaeological materials that may be recovered in the excavation for the foundations. And second, that the applicant submit to the ARB for review final choices and recommendations for the stone and for the new brick for the two access ramps. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Ms. Albury. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen, Reverend as well. And Denise will get back to you with the approval following this meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Peace.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to item number 2 on our agenda. That's ARB 23HOL02. That is 7203 Beechwood Drive deck replacement project. This applicant is proposing to build a 10 by 20 upper deck and a 12 by 16 lower deck. George Cardasai represents the application. I apologize, Mr. Cardasai, if I mispronounced your name. I apologize for any background chatter I might be bringing into my mic from the world in my house right now.
What?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Yes, can I read my statement of disclosure?
Mr. Burns, sorry, I forgot that you have a statement you have to read. By all means, Mr. Burns. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District, and specifically state the following for the January 12th, 2023 ARB meeting. Action item ARB 23-HOL-02, located at 7203 Beechwood Road, Alexandria, and action item ARB 23-HOL-01, located at 2102 Mason Hill Drive, involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2, the nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 3, I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. And 4, I am able to participate in the transaction fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will send a written copy of this to Denise for the record.
All right, Denise, do we have a presenter for this application, or?
So, Mr. Daniel, I do not see Mr. and I've lost his name already, but the contractor, but I do see the owner, Cheryl Lavoie, and I apologize if I've mispronounced your name.
Ms. Lavoie, can you hear us? You'll have to unmute yourself though to be able to talk, as we were explaining to the other recent applicant. Denise, I think there's some background for this one. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, or.
Sure. So this project was permitted without the ARB review and brought to the county's attention by the Holland Hills DRC. The final inspection is contingent on ARB approval. So the zoning administrator has requested that a hold be placed on the permit so that the final inspection is withheld until the ARB review process is complete. So the deck is at least partially constructed as far as I'm aware. I don't know if it's been fully constructed or not. We were hoping to find that out tonight.
All right, and Ms. Lavoie, I see your name in here as a guest, but I see that you're still muted. You'll have to select on your screen the ability to unmute yourself so that we can hear you if you have a working mic. And I don't see, as you said, I don't see the contractor, George Cardasai, on here at this current moment. All right. As well, Mr. Lawyer, you're having technical difficulties. You can also message in the chat to let us know, just so we can get an idea of what's going on. See if we can assist. Denise, if we can't get her on mic and we don't have the contractor here, I don't necessarily know if I feel like it's prudent going forward with a review, because we're going to be talking about something that we don't necessarily have the applicant to respond to questions on. Sure.
Ms. Lavoie, could you try calling in? There's a number and we talked about that number at the very beginning. Let's see if I can give you the telephone number.
Sure, I'll be glad to do it for you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah. Yep.
That's not a problem. All right, the number is 1-571-429-5982, and the access code is 318-308-631.
And I'll drop that information in the chat.
I could have thought about doing that too if I thought about two steps further. Okay, so I would suggest at the moment, while we're trying to resolve that situation, it may be more prudent if we, for the sake of time, move on to our item number 3 on our agenda until we can get the applicant's ability to connect to us audibly. So is that acceptable, Denise? Can I pull an audible like that?
If it's acceptable to the rest of the board, to change the order of the agenda.
All right, all those in favor of switching 2 and 3? All right.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. All right, then we shall switch items 2 and 3 for the time being to technical difficulties and move to ARB 23 HOL 01. This is 2102 Mason Hill Drive, the Bobatech Residence Edition. We've seen this one before over I think 2 different workshop submissions, maybe even more. The applicant is proposing an addition and renovation of existing 2-story family residence in Holland Hills. Andrew Cheng represents the application. Mr. Chen, are you there?
Yes, excuse me, I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
All right, welcome to the front of the dance card. We should be giving you presentation ability, and so you can present to us about the application and update us as to where you're at now.
Yes, thank you. I'm bringing up my screen right now. Okay. I'm hoping that my screen's coming up.
Yep, we're seeing ourselves in duplicate now. I'm learning all the more. I need a haircut.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So good evening and thank you for your time. I'm going to go through this as efficiently as possible. You have a good memory. We did come before the ARB for a workshop back in August of last year. And I think it's worthwhile, excuse me, to spend just a minute to go through those workshop drawings just as a refresher. If you'll recall, we had 2 workshops, and what we did was we really made some key adjustments based on your very good comments. We moved the driveway, we reduced the size of the addition on the south side, and critically, we also relocated the entry foyer addition so as not to obscure the original house. And this was a before and after series that we presented in August to you, showing you how we shrunk the south addition, the master bedroom addition on all levels. We pushed the addition as far west as possible to try and expose and not cover up the existing home. And we moved this entry foyer around to the north side so that it did not obscure the east face of the house, which faces the public road, Mason Hill Drive. And so these are the before and after renderings, which you may recall. We pushed the building back. We went with a flat roof. We differentiated by color and material, T111 siding versus the existing horizontal redwood siding. And we also moved this entry addition around the corner so that it does not obscure the east face of the existing house. So those are some of the key moves that we made back in August. Okay, and now what I want to do is walk you through our application this evening. This is a view of the new driveway, the screen, privacy screen for the pool beyond. Here is our south addition with the flat roof, and you can see that it's very consistent with what we showed you at the workshop, so that we are not obscuring in any way the existing 2-story home. These are just photos of the existing home, and here what's important to see is the existing horizontal redwood siding, which we want to maintain. And in fact, we are going to salvage some of the material on the north face and what we're taking from the carport, which we're going to have to demolish, and we're going to repurpose that as part for the north addition. And so I'm going to zoom in here on each of these renderings, and you can see that the proposed design is very consistent with what we showed you in August. Flat roof, T111 siding, 2-story addition on top of a garage which is cut into the earth, custom screen fence, privacy fence for the pool beyond. We moved the driveway, and we are not obscuring the existing home, which will maintain its existing redwood horizontal siding. We are going to have to rebuild this site retaining wall here, and as you may recall, we are demolishing the existing driveway and building a new pedestrian walkway. This wall has actually, the existing wall has collapsed. it was in pretty bad shape, and it's now lying on the ground. Looking at the east elevation, you can see that it's also consistent with what we showed you in August. South addition beyond, we are not covering the east face of the existing house whatsoever. And this is the proposed north addition, flat roof, very modest with a new patio. And we are proposing to take the salvaged horizontal redwood siding and use that for the exterior walls of the north addition only. Here, coming around to the northwest face, you can see the north addition clad in the salvaged redwood horizontal siding. And then this is the existing house. And then this is the south addition beyond. And lastly, this is a view from the southwest, overlooking the outdoor pool, the custom privacy fence. You can see the driveway, which we've pulled further to reduce the amount of pavement, 2-story addition in T111 siding over top of a 3-car garage. This is a small bathroom and pool equipment room, which will have a green roof, and you can see the existing house beyond. Site plan has stayed very consistent with what we showed you in August. We moved the driveway, south addition, north addition, existing house shaded in gray, concrete entry walk, and then this is the site wall that we're going to have to rebuild because it's collapsed. These are just the demolition drawings showing you that we're keeping the footprint intact. We're going to have to remove a bunch of interior partitions. This is consistent with what we showed you in August. And here in these drawings, we're simply showing you that we're maintaining the existing horizontal siding on the existing house. The areas pochade in blue are windows that we have to remove, either because of the addition or because the glass is cracked or the windows are not functional. Floor plans have not changed from what we showed you in August. This is the pool and carport level. This is the mid-level, which is the office and the existing basement. And this is the main level of the existing house, and we'll have the master bedroom at this level. And this plan also has not changed. We are proposing to have a combination of the existing low slope roof and flat roofs, and this will all be built up roofing. It will not be shingle, it will not be membrane. This is going to be built up roof. These are the elevations that are consistent with the renderings that I just showed you. South addition with T111 siding, a combination of fixed and operable windows, the existing house with the horizontal siding, and the north addition with the horizontal siding that's going to be salvaged and reused. You can see that here. On the south elevation, you can see the window walls. We are using a combination of fixed glass and also operable awning units. And then to meet code, we will have in the occupied rooms operable casements to meet the minimum escape opening size. Here again on the west elevation, you can see the T111 siding on the south addition. You can see the existing house, the north addition. All of the railings that we're proposing will be cable rail system. These are just the building sections showing you the 2-story addition on top of the carport that's cut into the earth. This is the site section that you all request in your application format, showing, and you'll recall how this house sits on a very sloped site, which is why we're matching floor levels, 2-level house. And so the master bedroom matches the upper level, the office matches the existing basement, and then the addition sits on top of a carport that's cut into the hill. These are just the wall sections showing you how we're going to put all of this together, how we're matching floor to floor heights. These are wall sections through the north addition, and the prior sheet was through the south addition. These are just the wall assembly types, basically showing you T111 siding versus existing horizontal siding on top of the wall assembly. These are various details. The important thing to take away here in these window details is that we are using the appropriate rabbited 2x6 window frames. So we're going to have fixed insulated units in rabbited 2x6s for the elevations. And then we will use, we're looking at clad wood windows for the casements and operable awnings. The only place we'll use fiberglass operables will be in the bathrooms because of moisture concerns. These are some other exterior details just showing how we're going to have a composite deck on top of the concrete slab on sleepers, details of the fascias. And then these are some roof details. I guess what I want to point out to you here is that we went to, we used outriggers so that we, the roof is deep to meet thermal envelope and energy code, but that results in a very thick profile for the fascia. So what we've done is we've used outriggers throughout so that we can maintain a fascia depth of about 9 inches, which is more consistent with what we see in Holland Hills. These are just some miscellaneous exterior details for the fence, a combination of 1x2s and 1x4s on 4x4 posts, a custom concrete bench in the patio. And this is a detail of that retaining wall I mentioned to you that's collapsed. We have to build a new wall, and how does it join the corner of the existing house without obscuring it because there's an existing window. So this is just telling the contractor how we want it built. This is just a detail of the cable rail system and the posts sitting on the deck. We do have a full set of civil engineering and landscape drawings, and so this is just the demolition drawing, show the extent of disturbance. Proposed site plan is consistent with everything that I've already showed you. We will have stormwater management, so this rectilinear dashed line that you see here is actually underground containment to control the runoff. We do have a landscape architect on board to help, and so this is basically a drawing that shows their review and survey of the existing vegetation and canopy, tree canopy. This is the tree preservation plan, and the trees that you see marked in red are the trees that are going to be removed either because of the extent of construction, or if they're outside of the area of disturbance, they need to be removed because they're in poor health, and the arborist is recommending that we remove them. And lastly, we have the proposed landscape plan, which the owner worked with the landscape architect to propose these plantings. It's very nice. It's basically a perimeter of oak and red maple. So white oak and maple are the larger ones, and then some ornamental trees, red bud, dogwood, and I believe, yeah, one cherry and cherry. So that is our presentation for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chen. First and foremost, before we get to member questions and comments, we always have a chance for any member of the public to provide comment on this application. So what I would ask is if any member of the public that's attending could raise your hand or press *5. As well, normally I know sometimes, Ms. Ward, you also provide a comment regarding the DRC, so I want to give you a chance as well if you have a comment. Feel free to raise your hand as well, not to put you on the spot.
Oh, I apologize, Chris. I failed to mention that we did go to the Holland Hills DRC for final approval just before the holiday, and it was reviewed and approved.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
I'm not, Denise, I'm not seeing any hands up in the chat.
Neither am I.
All right, I'm not seeing any messages in there either. So what I'll do is I would turn it over to members for their comments and questions. And Mr. Plumpy has his hand up. So Mr. Plumpy, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. I'm sorry I'm being so assertive this evening, but in any event, I was going to say that was this property, and Andrew, is that right? Is that Andrew?
Yes, my name is Andrew. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm the landscape architect on the board, so of course I'm going to probably chime in more with that, but as well as architectural issues sometimes. But in any event, was this one of the properties that Dan Kiley, the landscape architect, back in the day when this project was designed? Did he do a landscape architectural concept plan?
That's a very good question. I haven't done any research, and the owner did not inform me that Dan Kiley provided a landscape plan for this property.
If you could, if you could, number one, check that box and see if there is such a plan with the applicant. Then also take a look at other plans, if there were other plans adjacent to it. My suggestion is to create, not exactly what it was, but maybe more in the theme of it. I doubt if Dan Kiley had these plants just in a row so tight to the property line. I think there was a little bit more imagination, that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, I don't have any problem with the tree species, maybe the red maple because it's shallow root system, but hey, that's the owner to take care of. But they all are native or adaptive native species, what y'all mentioned, which is fantastic. But I would just strongly recommend that you review the existing or the past history of the site or the neighboring properties. That if Dan Kiley's influence is there, let's try and bring some of that back in here, because I don't think it's quite there in my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Burns, I see you have your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, in answer to your question, I believe that this house was constructed after the time that Dan Kiley had not, after the time when Dan Kiley had been active in doing plot plans in the community. It was mostly in what is known in the community as Old Holland Hills, which is over the hill from where this one is. And so I doubt that is the case, but I have an inventory of all of Kiley's work that he did here, and I can't find it on my computer at the moment, but I will check. But I believe that's correct. There was not a Dan Kiley plot plan for this particular property.
Thank you, Mr.
Andrew, I have a question. You had mentioned that the new awning windows will be wood, but in several of your drawings you showed replacement of the lower awning windows. And so you had that one drawing where they were in blue. There's like 3 of them across the bottom of the drawing.
Yep.
Okay, so if you replace those, are you replacing them to match the existing, or are you replacing them with the new types you're proposing? And I guess, in other words, are these going to be old, new, old, new, old, new, or are these going to be match old, old, match old, new?
Very good question. So the existing house has a combination of, it's somewhat random, but there was done in the past. And so the house has a combination of single pane, fixed glass, original aluminum sliders, lower sliders, and in some areas, in some rooms, it has been retrofitted with insulated glass units and what appear to be some vinyl awnings. And the vinyl awning units that were done, frankly, are some of them are not operable. The installation wasn't done very well. They're not consistently fitted and poorly fitted to the original openings. And in some cases, we have fixed insulated glass that has just failed. It's cracked and the seal's completely gone. So what we're proposing to do is to, if the existing insulated unit is fine, we're going to leave it. If there's an existing insulated lower unit, we're going to leave it. But all of the lower operable units, whether they're aluminum sliders or they're vinyl awnings, we're going to remove them and replace them with new windows so that they all match.
Okay, cool. Because that's one of the things that it was beginning to look like in this particular rendering that, you know, you'd have slightly mismatched teeth in your mouth there.
No, I actually walked around inside and outside to survey every window. And in many cases, I checked the actual functionality of the window. And I talked to the owners about it, and we just felt that if they went to all this trouble and all this work to build these beautiful additions and renovate the house, wouldn't it be a shame to have a single pane aluminum slider, or worse yet, these vinyl awning windows that don't function and they've been set into the opening in different positions? I don't know why.
Okay. All right, cool. And then with regard to the new construction, you had mentioned you're going to be using rabbited 2x6s, which, by the way, today's 2x6 is slightly different than the historic 2x6s you're going to find in the house. Dimension lumber, the nominal dimensions changed over time. That's something I ran into when I did an addition to my own house. But you're able to get that, and the county isn't giving you grief on energy issues? You can do it with a 6-inch wall.
We can. So we're using a combination of spray foam insulation and a zip system, which has thermal envelope capabilities as well. And so what we're doing is we're going to make sure that all of the windows meet the U value requirements of code, and also we have all the thermal envelope for the roof and the walls. Yeah.
Okay, and then in all of the new glass, is it going to be low E glass? And the reason I'm asking is I'm concerned. I've seen in any number of Holland Hills houses where they go in and they put in new glass and don't think about the color temperature that the glass renders, and they come out decidedly green or blue. What type of glass are you using? Is it low iron, low E?
So
what is it?
Well, it's not low iron, but we're for clear low E.
Clear low E. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, we're not looking for any tint. We're just going to go for clear low E.
Right. The key thing is to match the reflectivity and translucency of the existing glass that you're retaining with the new glass.
That's to the best of our ability. That's what we want to do. Because for example, if you look at this drawing, I believe in this face, this is the living room facing south. All of these windows have been replaced. So this is all insulated glass. Okay. And as you know, that's very expensive, and they're fine. So there's no reason to change it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
All right. I saw Mr.
Mr. Chairman, one other question.
Oh, go ahead, John. Oh, sorry, John. I didn't realize you had another question. By all means.
Yeah, that's my bad. In the pool fence, in the floor plans that show the outline of where that presumably will be, there you go. In the, I guess that would be the east side of that fence, it's fairly robust, the vertical line there. But when it wraps around the south and the west, not the concrete retaining wall, but the south and the west, it's decidedly thinner in rendering here. Is that a different fence, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I skipped past that or wasn't clear. So the privacy screen fence that you see here, which is this dark line I'm following with my cursor, is a 6-foot tall custom horizontal slat fence on 4x4 posts. There is no fence on the south side. There is no fence on the west side. And the reason for that is that the pool is going to have an automatic cover. And the pool consultant has told us that the health department, from a life safety standpoint, because it has an automatic cover, the pool does not have to be fully enclosed by a fence. And so the pool deck, the pool deck itself is actually open to the landscape. And so what you're seeing here in the lower left-hand corner is actually the concrete of the pool deck is going to have concrete steps that gradually disappear into the landscape. And that's why they're different lengths, because they die into the existing topography.
Okay. And the county's okay with a taller than 4-foot fence in the front yard?
The front yard is over here to the right. It's well beyond. It's nowhere near the front yard.
Okay. All right. So they're saying it's behind the face of the house. because
Yeah.
the house, yeah, okay, I got you. Thank you again. And Mr. Chairman, that's my last question.
John, if I could, before I forget, you mentioned that you have a full inventory of Dan Kiley's work. After you have a chance to look at that, would you mind sending me an email
I
separately?
definitely will, yes.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I saw Mr. Bobatek, so I believe the owner had his hand up. Mr. Bobatek, I think you might want to provide a comment on one of the questions that were provided. If you still do, please feel free to unmute.
Yes, hi, good evening. Very briefly, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Pumpy's comments. I know and Mr. Burns, it actually is part of, it's always been considered part of New Holland Hills, not Old Holland Hills. My family's the original owners. It was not a Dan Kiley plan. We did get a landscaping plan by Lee Skillman that's dated May of 1967. Interestingly enough, I've got a super old copy of it in my hand, but the southern side that we're talking about was completely bare and there were no trees. We liked the trees. The reason for the number of trees was apparently the tree canopy factor. We're not wedded to a straight line. This is what the arborist suggested. We have no problem staggering them. I think that's a really good idea. I just really wanted to respond. You said something about Dan Kiley, and I don't believe he was involved. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you so much for clarifying that, and I welcome your thoughts about staggering trees, make it a little bit more naturalistic instead of so regimented for this one. Thank you.
All right, and Denise, I see Barbara Ward has her hand up down in the chat. Is there a way for you to elevate her so she can be unmuted? Since
Yes,
I
just wanted to make sure that you were okay with that.
I'm fine with that. Ms. Ward, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I've unmuted myself. This is Barbara Ward of the Holland Hills DRC. I just wanted to say that this matter has been before us a number of times. And Mr. Bobatak and Mr. Chang work very closely with the DRC. You all, I was glad to see, identified many of the issues that we had initially raised, and we have approved in December, given final approval to this plan. So it does have our support. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Any other members, feel free to raise your hand. John, I'm not sure if that's the legacy hand you have up, or if you had another comment.
Sorry, legacy.
All right. I do want to say, while any other members are considering if they have any other comments, I do greatly appreciate the changes the applicant has made, and I think the comparison of showing the before and after really has shown how the design overall has been, in my eyes, designed more sympathetically to the Holland Hills HOD. It's still, I think, achieving what your client's looking after, but also doing it in a way that I think is more responsive in the long run to the design and intent of the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. I'm not going to belabor any of the other comments you got from any of the other members. I think they've already pinpointed the more salient things, particularly the landscaping and the staggering of trees to try to be reflective of landscaping we're seeing. That's a great idea. So that's all I have to add. If there are not any other members with comments, I'm not seeing any, then at this moment I would entertain a motion from a member if one has one.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Burns.
I'll give it a shot. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23-HOL-01, located at 2102 Mason Hill Drive, Alexandria, Virginia 22306, tax map 0933200010, and then Holland Hills Overlay District, Historic Overlay District, for the proposed addition and renovation to an existing two-story single-family residence as submitted and presented at the January 12, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'd happily second that.
All right, seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. I think he got it in first. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Oh, an abstention by Ms. Swan. Okay, Ms. Swan is abstaining. All right, so we have, I believe it's 4 and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Chen and the Bobatech family. Denise will get with you. The motion carries. Thank you very much for your time and effort.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yep. Nice job, Andrew. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to step back real quick to our prior action item number 2 to see if we've had any success in getting the applicant or the owner, Ms. Lavoie. Can we hear you now? Denise, I see we have a meeting guest. Is that, we know who that is?
So everybody shows up for me as a meeting guest.
Okay,
Yeah.
His name is MG, meeting guest, and it has no identifiable information. But but they are not unmuting.
I'm sorry. Is it is this person under presenters or attendees?
Yes, under presenters. But they're not saying anything either, and so
I don't see them. That's interesting. Oh, is it? No,
I don't either, Denise.
Yeah, I don't see them, Chris. You
okay,
have a,
well, it could
you
be
have
an
a ghost.
anomaly on my end, so don't worry about that. But Miss Lavoie, I don't think we've gotten you to join as an attendee via the phone or via the Teams application. So I can give you a chance to see if we can get you to unmute this time. Otherwise, I think at this moment, without someone to represent the application, we're going to probably have to defer this one for a future ARB meeting. All right, not hearing anything on the technological front. I'm going to look to the membership if anyone would like to make a motion to defer application ARB 23HOL02 due to technical issues, and with hopes that the staff can work with the applicant and the homeowner to possibly make sure we can make this happen at the February meeting. But I'll need a motion to do that.
Mr. Daniel, I'll try to put together a motion. I move that ARB defer action item ARB 23-HOL-02 located at 7203 Beechwood Road, Alexandria, Virginia 22307, tax map 0933040212 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed construction of a 10 by 20 deck, upper deck, and a 12 by 16 lower deck, as submitted and presented, or as not submitted or presented due to technical issues at the January 12, 2023 ARB meeting.
Do we have a second for that item?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Swan. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. We'll defer this item to the February meeting or another meeting if the applicant wants to submit it to a later meeting. And Denise will work with them on resolving the technical issue we're running into to see this application. All right, I apologize, Ms. Lavoie, that we can't get that to work out. Hopefully we can solve it for February. All right, this takes us on to our last item for action, which is actually conjoined with an item coming in for workshop. This is ARB 23 SMC 01 5640 Ox Road infill grading plan. This is the project located on Ox Road in Fairfax Station. It is a proposal for an infill lot grading plan for review and recommendation. not approval, but remember recommendation. We do have recommendations on grading plans. This application is related to ARB 23 SMC 02WS for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Sunny Raja, and again, I apologize if I mispronounced that, is representing the application. And as I said, we are taking up a recommendation, the grading plan, which we have now learned does include things like the landscaping plan. And then we'll be talking in a workshop session about the actual single family, so the architectural and new construction itself. So I would first ask that the applicant focus the presentation on the grading plan with only a cursory touch over of the new construction itself, and then we'll switch to a workshop session for that afterwards, so that we can kind of compartmentalize the two. Miss or Mr. Raja, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Sunny Raheja. I don't know if you're able to see us because I can't see the screen.
We can see you looking to pick to share something. So yes, we can see all of us again.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we can
see all of you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can you see my screen that says our presentation?
Yes,
okay.
I can.
So before I get started, I want to introduce our team. I've got Mr. Hamid Tehrani here.
Good
who's
evening.
Our professional engineer, the PE, and we've got Mr. Victor Montes, who's our architect consultant. And then we've also got Mr. Russell O'Kelly, who is online as well. He's our landscape architect. And I want to express my gratitude for you guys to go over and continue to keep this meeting past the scheduled time. Being cognizant of the time, I'll dive right into the presentation if that's okay, or if you have any questions, because I know you have seen the presentation before and we can address them beforehand.
No, absolutely. I would say proceed right into your presentation, and I very much appreciate your thought that we have a scheduled end time. I wish I could say we did, but for many of my members, I think we would all say, unfortunately, we don't. But yes, obviously, please jump into the presentation, and then what I think we'll do, as I indicated, we will focus on the grading plan and take up that for action, and then move into a discussion for workshop discussion on architectural.
That sounds good. So I'll try to be as concise as possible within the 8 minutes. But if I go over, I apologize in
Focus
advance.
on the site plan issues as part of it.
So we've got a quick agenda where we'll tell you the purpose, the site information, the map, the grading plan, landscaping plan, and touch upon the architectural drawings, which will go into the workshop. But as you said, our focus will be within the approval, seeking approval of the grading plan from the ARB.
Recommendation.
Just on a quick introduction, the owner of the property is Subgroup Properties LLC, Trilok Singh Raheja, who is my dad, just for everybody's edification. Our professional engineer, as I mentioned, is CEAC LLC, that's Hamid Tehrani, and architect representative is Victor Montes from VM Architect, and I'm sorry I didn't mention our landscape architect, who is William O'Kelly, Russell O'Kelly. He's online, and we are also the general contractor. On a quick note, we are seeking approval. We have submitted our entire grading plan, and we're happy to go through each of those items that are in the grading plan. But within the slide deck, we have our grading site grading plan on slide 6, which will go over, and the landscape plan, which is on slide number 7. And for your reference for the workshop, we have a number of slides, which I won't go over. Just as a quick note, we looked at the entire guidelines that are included within the Fairfax County website on the St. Mary's Church Historic District, and we try to stay as compliant as possible. To give you a quick overview on the site information, our site area is little less than 2 acres. We are zoning ordinance of RC District, Springfield Historic District, St. Mary's Overlay District. We looked at the building restriction line setbacks of front to be at 40 feet, side to be at 20 feet, rear to be at 25. And there is a railroad track at the end, and the building restriction line for that is 100 feet. Our proposed building area, including the garage, is 5,213. Proposed driveway is 2,582 square feet. And we have miscellaneous walkways, sidewalk, pool, etc. around the building footprint, which is 5,224 square feet, making the total impervious area of 13,019 square feet. And the percentage of that is 15.6 based on our on our site. There is no floodplain on the site. There is no wetland on the site. Our proposed building elevation for the first floor is 405 feet, basement is at 395, and the garage is at 402.5. On the stormwater management, we are proposing a detention trench that will store the runoff from the driveway, the proposed roof, and the pool area, and release it at the lower rate. We have been working with the county, right, as on a courtesy review basis. We've gone through a couple of iterations. We've addressed all their comments, and we have now also submitted, I think, a second set of review.
The updated plans for the courtesy review.
Based on all the comments that we received from them.
We're waiting for the ARB recommendation approval of the grading plan.
Right.
So, and also the architectural plan, so we can resubmit back to the site review department of the Fairfax County.
Correct, to get the site grading plan approval. Just on a quick note, from a vicinity standpoint, this lot is just at the outskirt of the St. Mary's district, across a railroad, sort of a standalone in the corner. On this side of 123, there is a popular road that goes over here to which the access of the lot is. We have provided right-of-way pictures for your reference at the end as well. And in terms of the grading plan, I'm going to let our professional engineer, Hamid Tehrani, talk through that really quickly so you understand what is the disturbed area and where we intend to include the house and the accessory structures. So you want to spend a few minutes?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to present this infill upgrading plan for your recommendation approval. Basically, as Mr. Raija mentioned, the site is about less than 2 acres. And there are, part of the site is wooded, scattered trees. And then there is an existing culvert that is coming from underneath the Ox Road and discharges into our property. And if you've been to the site, you would realize that the existing, you could call it, creek or a stream, is actually failed because due to erosion, and the ditch is not stable, and there's a lot of erosion on it. So what we are proposing is to basically fill in that existing waterway, and there are no wetlands, and there's no floodplain associated with this stream, and basically we are grading a new channel, as you can see on the plan. And you can give me this, I can show you. Right. So what we're doing is we have graded this channel, and we have done the calculation to make sure that it does have adequate capacity to convey the runoff from being discharged from the offsite area. And approximately about 5 acres of offsite area that it drains into our property. Also, what we basically, as a result of the comments that we received from the Fairfax County, our first submission review, we're required to make sure that we're going to basically store the runoff from the site, from the impervious area of the site. And since we have limited the disturbed area to below 1 acre, so they're going to be okay with us to just design this, which we already have designed it, the trench, stormwater management detention trench, and release at the pre-development rate to the site. We also we're not basically discharging from the trench to where the railroad track is, and only the runoff from the outside is basically going to be conveyed toward where the actual original waterway was that would, discharge, or basically is like a waterfall there to where the track is outside of our property line. And then as far as the grading is concerned, we kept the floor elevation of the building maybe about 3 feet maximum above the existing ground. And we have a basement, and also we have a pool area and a porch at the rear of the building. And one thing I'd like to mention about this footprint is because of the 100-feet setback and the building restriction line that we have on front where the Poplar Street is, and also the Ox Road, there is a very limited building area available for any footprint, and the building that Mr. Raja picked, and he liked the exterior of the building and the layout of the building, is basically it just barely fit within that area. So going and trying to get other footprints, it's going to be difficult to fit in within this limited building area that we came up. There is a proposed driveway, as you can see, and the runoff from the driveway is going to be carried through this ditch and brought into the trench, the stormwater management trench. The runoff from the roof area, all the roof drains is going to be connected and then brought into the trench as well. So as the drainage around the pool area is going to be brought in. And the trench is designed, and we have all the calculations and everything that will be submitted as part of the second submission to the Fairfax County for the review. And actually we have requested from the reviewer to do a PDF, to do a courtesy review of the updated plans for the trench and calculation, and also the capacity design that we did for this proposed channel here. So having said all that, if there are any other additional questions regarding the landscaping, Mr. Russell is online and he can cover that part of the landscaping and respond to any of your questions.
And I think we have a next slide actually that shows the landscape plan as well.
Can you bring that one, please? Thank you.
So this is the landscape plan. O'Kelly, are you online?
O'Kelly, are you online?
Yes, I'm here, Hamid.
Okay, so if you could go ahead and kind of cover the landscaping, the existing vegetation map, and also the proposed landscaping and all this.
The predominant for this site, predominantly this site is existing wooded. There is an open area of grass in the center area. For the purpose of this plan, it was to be a tree inventory and a tree preservation plan of what existing trees were going to be preserved. Trees that have been shown to be removed will be affected by grading and will not be able to survive construction. The several existing trees along Poplar Road are either dead or in very severe decline and will not be saved as well. As far as additional landscaping at this time, there was no additional landscaping to be shown on this submission because the minimum tree canopy requirements were met by existing vegetation. At this point, if anyone has any questions, feel free. I'm available.
And this is just a quick inventory of the trees that we provided. And as Mr. O'Kelly mentioned, there's no additional planting required because we already have the minimum tree canopy coverage requirements satisfied based on the plans submitted. So at this particular moment, I'll pause, take any questions because this sort of concludes the site plan presentation. We have submitted the site plan, a full site plan to the ARB. And if there are any questions, we're happy to walk through the site plan itself. We do have it open.
Okay.
But we are seeking approval for the site plan and the grading plan.
Well, what I will do first, I know we already have one member who's got their hand up. I'm not surprised he does, but we also obviously seek if there is any member of the public that has a comment on this application following the presentation. This is the time in which they would do it. So Denise, I would have you keep an eye out. I know we only have 2 attendees, so I'm not suspecting we have a member of the public that has a comment on this one. However, I have to follow my bylaws and ask that question, so I'm asking it. I'm not seeing any hands up from attendees, so what I'm going to assume is that there are no members of the public that have a comment on this item for application. So I'll take us to our members for their questions and comments. So Mr. Plumpy, you had your hand up first, so I'll let you jump in and take a bite of the apple.
Sure. Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's great to see it. I live very close to here. I drive by it probably 5 to 10 times a week. I live in Fairfax Station off of 123, so I drive by this many times. I've take Burke Center Parkway to go grocery shopping and all that stuff. So I'm very, very, very familiar with this site.
I grew up in Burke Center, so I'm a Burke Center.
That's good.
Graduate, if you will.
That's right. That's good. That's good.
That's the reason he wants to move into that location.
Okay. Let's start. If you go back to your grading plan, please.
Sure.
So from the grading plan standpoint, did you get right now in your demolition plan or your tree clearing plan, your clearing limits don't go as far as you show in the grading plan. Did you get permission from VDOT to go in the road right away to grade to the shoulder of Ox Road?
Well, we actually submitted the plans, and the VDOT is in the process of reviewing that plan. We haven't received any comments from VDOT regarding whether they have any objection.
Sure. Well, because VDOT doesn't like me to do the road without permission.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but you're breaking up a little bit. There's a lot of disturbance. I think there may be other people that maybe are not on mute. So,
yeah. Can you hear me clear? Am I clear?
Yes, you can hear.
Yeah, I hear the feedback too.
Mr. O'Kelly, if you could mute yourself, I think.
Okay, that's better.
There we go.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly.
As I mentioned, that we have not received any comments from VDOT regarding that encroachment into the VDOT right-of-way, but I believe that's something that we need to do because that culvert is not discharging into our property, but is actually discharging into the VDOT right-of-way. That is going to, direct into our property, which is actually going through.
Understood that. So, so the culvert is underneath Ox Road, as you mentioned before. So therefore, that culvert is now discharging. So my assumption is that they're going to allow you to do that. They're going to have you do riprap and so forth, and make it a more
absolutely.
Make it more real.
Exactly. That's the plan.
Absolutely. Okay. So, but so right now your plan is not approved even yet by VDOT. So therefore, you cannot get your grading plan from the county. So right. So they're kind of holding you up too, besides us, right?
They're kind of holding us up for your approval recommendation.
All right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
Okay. Now, you notice your grading plan, and I'm going to challenge you guys on this because I'm going to select the best. I'm going to select the best tree on your site. I'm disappointed because ox tree. I love that white oak tree. It's your 85% quality tree that the arborist has certified that it was that. It is our number 11. I would like to challenge you. I know the house doesn't have to move, and I think there just be some creative design with a wall at the edge of the critical root zone, which is the dash line around that, to preserve that tree. And I'm going to dig in my hands. I will not support this unless you tell me you can support to save that tree. Period.
Number 11 right here.
Which one is it?
This one.
Number 11. Number 11.
Right there?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so you basically want us to preserve that.
I'm very passionate about that tree. I drive by it. I've been living here for almost 45 years. Okay. And I've seen that tree grow substantially. It was a 20-inch caliper. Now it's a 35-inch caliper tree. Caliper tree.
I think we should be able to work around that tree to, basically to save that tree. What do you think, Mr. Russell? Are you there?
Yes, Hamid, it's,
Yeah.
yes,
That tree
I
that's
don't see
going
an
to-
issue with it. We just need to do some regrading and rerouting.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
and possibly a wall or whatever you have to do, or grade against your house to have the house itself be the retaining wall, whatever you want to do. But I really would recommend strongly that you do that.
We'll do our best to save it.
Okay.
Let me rephrase. We will save it.
Well, yes, yes.
Mr. Plumpy, I'll
That's
just
okay,
remind you
Mr.
that
Mr. Raja says the
we-
last, he says the last word, so it's
Well,
gonna be
we will-
saved.
we will
It's
save
gonna
it.
be saved. Because he's gonna live
Joe,
in
I
this
think if you
house.
want that to be something that you're very passionate about, it should be a contingent upon, as a part of a condition, as a part of our recommendation.
No,
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. You're reading my mind. And just to add to that, since, and
absolutely.
I'm not trying to be greedy here, but there's even probably a more sustainable tree, which is number 11, which is number 12, another white oak. That is right at your limits of clearing line there, which there should be no problem saving that if you're saving this tree. So those two trees, I'm going to recommend strongly, not recommend, I will demand that you save
Yeah,
it.
we'll adjust the limit of disturbance around it and we'll save it.
Okay, so
Thank you.
11 and 12,
11 and
yeah,
12.
we have to save.
Yes.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
12 and 11.
Got
I'm
it.
not going to say 10 or 13, just 12 and 11. And since today is January 12th, that's even a better chance that we should do it. Thank you.
Consider it done.
Yes.
How's that?
Thank you. And now, one thing I will say, you could thank me now, because then you don't have to go into the VDOT road right away to do your grading, because you don't have to go that way. I'm seriously. You can withdraw your application tonight.
Yeah. Well,
Withdraw your application.
We can change that.
Yeah. Maybe express our gratitude and say thank you.
Actually, you would love that tree,
Yeah,
Kay,
no, I
because you're
do.
gonna live in that house.
No, I do. I've been to it,
Yeah.
and I was a little bit disappointed that we're actually taking it out. But now that I have an affirmation from the ARB, and we're not going to remove
I
it.
wish
now.
you had mentioned to me, we would have taken it out, too, so you would have been happy
Yeah.
with.
There you go. All right, so that's
All right,
one.
let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you so much.
Anything else from you, Mr. Plumpy?
At this point, no, but thank you so much for allowing me to speak, and I'm glad so that the client is agreeable to my terms. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Next on our hands up will be Miss Albury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the applicant for submitting the archaeological survey data form, which did make its way to the Fairfax County Archaeology and Collections branch. They did respond, and I just wanted to make sure you have seen their suggestions and what they would like to have done, including at a minimum having a archaeological survey at a phase 1 level. They're saying that the site is surrounded by archaeological sites that are known and already registered at the county level, and so that there is a high potential to have some archaeological sites on this plot of land because it's there's no structures on it and probably hasn't been developed. So can you tell me, have you been given a copy of their response?
We have, and I want to thank you for that comment. We have received the comment from Ms. Denise, and she was kind enough to send that to us. We have reviewed it. We've spoken to a few archaeologists as well, and we are working on getting a quote in getting the phase 1 study to take place in the near future. Okay. So in that regards, I do have a couple of questions for you, and I'm glad you brought it up. In one of the initial discussions, you had mentioned archaeological monitoring as a part of excavation. And we had made that point, even speaking with our archaeologists, that if that was a possibility, and You know, the other aspect of my question, I don't want to say it's more challenging or satisfying to me at least, which is we are so much further away from the church itself and being at the corner. If there was any way of, you know, see how do we limit that process, if there is a possibility, if not, at the minimum, doing it as a monitoring service, right? Where we do have an archaeologist present when we do that excavation. During the construction phase. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that. So we'd like to get your feedback on that.
Sure.
But we do have, but I do want to be very, very clear that we did speak to a couple of archaeologists. We do have their quotes. And if that is the pertinent next step, that we would be prepared to do so.
Well, certainly, I mean, archaeological monitoring is something that is used, but that is often in cases where you already really know that there's going to be, that there is a site and you're looking for certain things, and that's during the construction. But in this case, it's a landform that they believe is relatively intact and has not been disturbed. And doing a phase 1 survey is really, as the companies you've consulted have probably told you, they're more than likely going to do surveys along transect lines that are spread out across the entire area that you're planning to impact with your grading.
Okay.
And in that sense, and then they'll probably take some subsurface samples at different points along those transect lines. That is a better way of being able to try and find out if there are some sites on that plot of land before starting construction, because if you use monitoring, the problem with that is it can be that if a site is there and it's discovered by the monitor, then construction has to stop.
Right, I understand.
And you've
that.
already
That's a fair
had,
point.
you know, you're paying for.
That's a very fair point.
Yeah. So in a way, it's probably more economical to do a phase 1 survey of your land. And they are thinking that the sites that are surrounding this plot of land contain a wide variety of parts of history from the county, from very early through Civil War and later. So it's not just that they're thinking this plot of land might have something that would be connected specifically to the St. Mary's Church. It could be something that is related to earlier time periods in Native Americans. So, and we still want to know that and protect those sites and recover them before putting, you know, before grading. So you could ask the companies you've consulted what they would charge for monitoring, but I have a feeling that if we ran into something and they had to stop, it would be much more expensive and it would delay your project.
No, I think that's I think that's a very fair point. Thank you for providing that clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So in anticipation of us requiring to get the archaeological study, we have been talking to a few archaeologists, but if you have a recommendation of one or another that we should work with that is approved by the county, we're happy to talk to them as well. The reason I ask you this is, right, when we purchased, or my dad purchased this piece of property, his intent was to build his own house on the property. And we weren't aware, to be honest with you. I just want to be very frank with you about the archaeological issue, which just came up last week. But we want to be completely in compliance with what the county asks for. and we want to do the right way the first time. So while we have done our research and find archaeologists that could perform this, I have to be honest with you, they don't come cheap. So these studies have added a price tag, which I am even embarrassed to say in this meeting. But if you have somebody that is qualified and approved by the county that we could speak to, I think I would like that opportunity just to make sure that we are
doing proper.
Yeah, exactly. One, doing it proper and not, paying somebody for so much more because we asked for it.
Right, and meeting all the requirements.
And meeting all the requirements. And I hope you know where we're coming from. So any suggestions and guidance in that perspective is greatly appreciated by the county or by the ARB.
I have a feeling that that is something that we really cannot give you necessarily a list, but we can tell you whether certain what companies that the county can tell you, perhaps companies that they have vetted, or you can look at reports that you can ask them for a list of people who have authored reports that they have in their office, and that would give you a sense of whether, well, hopefully the people the companies you're talking to have already done work. And they have reports sitting on their shelf. But there are certain minimum requirements.
Yeah.
That the at least the principal investigator must meet, and so the county archaeology branch is really the place you need to go for getting that type of assistance.
Okay. No, that's a very fair point. But to answer your question, yes, we have received the recommendation, and we are working towards getting that study and talking to a few companies, and hopefully we can get that done in the next few weeks or before the February meeting comes about. We can present to you these information, or if it takes longer, it will be March, but the sooner the better for us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Aubrey, do you have any other questions or comments?
No, I'm finished. Thank you.
Mr. Burns, I see your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Plumpy stole what I was going to say. I was going to ask, could they please retain tree number 11? So I concur with Mr. Plumpy completely.
Consider it done, sir. We're going to preserve 11 and 12.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Plumpy, did your hand go back up, or is it still up?
No, I just want to tag along. I was studying the drawings a little bit more, and thank you, Mr. Burns, for your support. And what I was going to say is that, as you know, there's that existing culvert that dead ends right at the edge of the pavement of 123. So that's when you're going to have to connect. So you're going to have to route your culvert, your stormwater pipe design differently to get out of the root zone, which is going to add another manhole in there. But then, or you can keep the gradient as is and have an inlet on your property to catch the water that comes out of that storm line. I doubt if it's going to be a lot of water that comes into that thing. That's my thought. It's only a 24-inch diameter culvert. Just give me a little bit of advice. So explore that a little bit more with your civil, because again, you don't need to go on the 123 road right away if you don't connect a manhole right at the edge of the pavement of 123. Keep that existing contours because you're saving the trees, and have an inlet on your property to capture that water and discharge it as you have to the far left of your property. That's all I'm going to say. Just give me a piece of advice.
No, that's a very fair
Really
point.
appreciate that.
And
thank you so much.
Speaking of our civil,
it makes sense.
That is Mr. Tehrani. We call him Mr. Civil.
Mr. Civil, Mr. Tehrani Civil. Okay.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
All right, seeing that there do not appear to be any other member comments, I'll remind everybody that unlike the other items for action we've taken up today, this is because it is a grading plan, is something that we provide a recommendation on. We are not providing approval, we are providing a recommendation for the county to approve. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the draft motion language provided for you. And I think all the other members have provided the input already, so I'm not going to repeat it ad nauseum. I will say that I think I think there's some great questions about potentially a recommendation that a phase 1 study be conducted. Denise put in the chat that VHR does provide a list of consultants that folks could talk to and consider to get that information on. So we're not in a place where we could really recommend an individual, because that kind of puts us in an awkward spot.
I understand.
You understand.
With that in mind, unless there are any other comments or questions, I would look to the members if someone would like to make a motion.
Mr. Daniel, this is Joe Plumpy. I would like to make a motion for this project.
Yes, sir.
The ARB motion for approval, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommendation approval of action item ARB 23-SMC-01, located at 5640 Ox Road, Fairfax Station, tax map 0771010057, in the St. Mary's Church Historical District for the infill lot grading plan for a new single-family dwelling, as submitted and presented at the January 12th, 2023 ARB meeting, with the following additions to the motion is that the applicant saves tree number 11 and 12 as shown on their landscape plan and tree inventory plan by the means of retaining walls, preserving existing grading, and rerouting or doing other measures of the stormwater management of the stormwater pipe from Route 123 culvert. Also, I would like to recommend that the applicant approaches the county to obtain a list of archaeologists that can assist them with the proper inventory of archaeological finds or digging, whatever. That's all. And Mr. Aubrey, I'd be more than happy to, if you'd like to add to that too as well.
All right, well, we have a motion, so if that motion is acceptable, I'll look for a second, and then Ms. Aubrey could obviously offer an amendment to that motion if she thinks it needs to be clarified a little bit. So is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. Ms. Aubrey, do you have any friendly amendments to offer to that motion? You're muted, Michelle.
Yes. Well, I would suggest in lieu of the consulting with the county to get a list of archaeologists, qualified archaeologists, that we instead replace it with language like that the applicant that the applicant conducts the applicant takes steps to identify and protect archaeological resources on the property in a manner that is suitable and approved by the county archaeology and collections branch. So that way then they could either do the phase 1 survey, or they could end up doing monitoring, but as long as the county is it feels that the method is appropriate. So in other words, it's replacing the second bullet of consulting with the county to get a list of archaeologists, in lieu of that, say something like the applicant consults with the county to assure that any archaeological resources on the property are located and protected from destruction by the grading plan. I'm open to other suggestions.
So Michelle, I want to offer a friendly suggestion to the amendment.
Sure.
So I like Joe's the recommendation of preserving trees 11 and 12 with the features described, the combination of features described. But I would suggest instead we recommend that the applicant pursue a. Yeah, I was going to suggest we pursue a phase 1 survey of the property to determine if there are archaeological sites that might warrant consideration and protection as part of its grading plan. That we recommend that. You could add the proviso that the county could work, or the applicant could work with the county to also pursue monitoring in lieu of that approach.
I think that your first suggestion is wonderful, and I would go with that one as opposed to monitoring, because I feel that it would be preferable for the applicant to undertake the phase 1 survey in lieu of doing monitoring. I think it would be a poor choice and could end up with project delays and be much more expensive to do monitoring.
Well, if you're happy with how I phrased it, then you can take my language and make it your amendment.
And
to make it easier, we will go ahead and proceed with getting the phase 1 study as you all suggested. So as you recommended, we will go ahead and we'll try to find a correct archaeologist, if you will, and get that study completed.
So it would be the recommendation of the tree preservation of 11 and 12 with the techniques suggested by Mr. Plumpy, as well as the recommendation or the condition that the applicant pursue a phase 1 archaeological survey.
Yes,
there.
Yes.
And we've heard that the applicant is amenable to that approach. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get it done.
All right. Is that acceptable to you, Joe, as the motion maker?
Yes, that is acceptable to me. Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
Our seconder, Mr. Zellman, is that acceptable to you?
Acceptable.
All right. Acceptable. All right. And for our recorder, is that a tangible motion that can be processed? That would be Denise and
I understand the motion. Ryan,
okay.
Did you?
And Ryan, sorry.
That's okay. I think we've got it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
We have a motion with an amendment on the floor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Hearing none, the motion carries. This will transition us into the discussion of our workshop session, which is about the same application. So the deck chairs just move around a little bit, and let's talk about your proposed architecture. What I'll say is for this one, obviously present your proposed design, and then this is a little bit less rigid than the application for review session, in which if you present a general concept we have those drawings. So, and I think we could just go for members for comments and questions on the proposed design after that.
It sounds good to me. If you're okay
all right.
with it.
The floor is yours again.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I apologize for that. I will show you the rendering first on how we would require and envision the house to look like as the single family. As you see, in comparison to the site plan, the driveway comes through. There's a portico cochere, if I'm saying that correctly, Mr. Architect. There's a driveway to the right and a driveway to the left, or I'm sorry, the garage to the right and the garage to the left as you get in, and then the house entrance into the right-hand side. We'd like to maintain the color scheme as much as possible that you see here, and we've provided the materials renderings as well at the end of the slide. I'll go a little bit more into the slight modifications that we've made to the architectural drawings. And Victor, please chime in where
You're doing great.
Okay, so this is the front of the house with, as I say, the portico here, 3-car garage and a 2-car garage, and on the top to be a bit of a living space as well, or I would actually call it an entertainment space. But the house entrance is here and the living space to be mostly in this area, if you will. This is the back of the house with the portion, the back behind the family room, and then the back of the portico with the swimming pool area in the back. And sort of jumping back to slide number 10, a slight modification, if you will, based on the design you saw, is to show you a better illustration on how the front would look like. So the entrance is here. As you can see, we've modified the entrance a little bit to include a first floor plan of a master bedroom on the first floor that you'll see on the on slide number 12 that I'll get into in a minute. And the same design of the, what happened to this slide? I can't see that now. Oh, there we go. Okay, hold on. I think this is better. Okay, there we go. I think this is better. I can move the mouse around better. The portico is here. There's a 3-car garage here. There's a 2-car garage here. And on the top, there's a living space. And then this is the living space on the top floor. And then the bottom floor on this side. This is the rear of the house with a staircase going on to the top here. And then the patio that opens up to the deck with the stairs on the bottom. And then going to the side elevations, this is the right and this is the left. Not so much to talk about here, but if you have any questions, we can get them at the end. From an elevation standpoint, this is the first floor elevation.
Floor plan.
The floor plan, I'm sorry, the first floor plan, first level floor plan. And as you come in, you sort of see the foyer and an open family area, the master bedroom, the master bath. This is the what do we call this little bathroom here? The powder room. And then a little bedroom or a study with a walk-in closet for that master bedroom. You got the dining area and the kitchen, and then the open patio in the back, having access from the kitchen and from the bedroom. Then we have the second floor plan where we intend to have a couple of bedrooms here, a couple of bedrooms here, and then sort of an open area on the top of the garage that you see on this side. In terms of, I've already gone through this slide and this slide. In terms of the material that we show a rendering here for is the stone that is used along this side, which is the brown. So the color may vary from what you see, but that's this brown on the back and on the pillars, as well as the brown that you see on the chimney and the entrance along the portico and around this window. Yeah, and the brick, I'm sorry, I'm jumping through. This is the ivory brick that we would be using as a primary brick around that you saw in the rendering as this color right here, which is all the way around the house perimeter in the front and the back I showed you, right? And then the ceiling, oh, it's not the ceiling, the roof itself would be of shingles, right? Not metal roof. And the material rendering is what you see here. But as you get more closer to the architectural design, I think we'll give you exact dimensions, or not exact specifications of each of the materials that we use for that, similar to what we've done for the sample of the brick.
Or whatever you prefer for you to.
Or, yeah, exactly. Or whatever recommendations that you would have for us. And I think we're happy to accommodate those recommendations. In terms of the right of way, this is 123 and this is Poplar Road. So while the address is 5640 Ox Road, it is still from Poplar Road, but that's a right of way. And you come in And as you come into this driveway, it's a longer driveway here, and the entrance is just about there, where you see that white car standing. That's sort of the extent of the presentation we have to obtain your suggestions from the workshop standpoint on our architectural design and sample of materials, and to obtain your feedback. So we're all ears.
Sure. So I would obviously suggest maybe pulling up that rendering or whatever drawing you want to have for potential discussion. I'm going to throw a few caveats out there, that because when we get in these situations where we have a site plan and then a architectural package, one of the things that obviously I think is fine for workshop is concept and ideas. When we get to something that is actually going to be built, you'll hear, and you might hear this from other members, we're going to want actual architectural plans, and as you said, specs, like you did with the brick, obviously information like that, because we've run into challenges where in some instances folks show us a rendering and say that's what it's going to look like, and then we look at the plans like, well, that's not what the plans say it's going to look like. And we want to be certain that those two marry up, because we don't want to run into a situation when Denise gets this coming in for the final process, it doesn't match up with what the ARB saw. I know that's not where we're at now, but I just want to keep that in mind for when you do come to seek approval for construction, for the architectural, that the devil gets into the details about making sure all the package is there for construction. That's my only comment right now. I'm going to defer to my other members to provide their thoughts on the proposed project and the design that you provide. I just wanted to throw that out there, that keep that in mind when we get closer to you coming in for an application for approval. All that information should be there so we can marry all that up.
I think that's Mr. Chair, I think that's a very fair point. But our intent was to show this rendering was to ensure that the ARB would be amenable to the design that we have, and we will absolutely do our due diligence. And when we come into the ARB next time, we will provide to you the same specifications that we did for the block or for the brick, as we would do for the stone and the shingles and whatever else would be required.
And I didn't expect that today at the workshop. I just wanted to give you a heads up that expectation does still exist when you do come in for an application, so you're not blindsided when you do come in for a full application.
Sure.
People like Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Plumpy and others will definitely, our architects on our board will definitely ask about those things.
Understood. So just so we are clear on our end, and I'm sorry to belabor this point, if we were to provide a similar type of specification that you see here for the brick, for everything else that we will use, rather than pro formas of what it would be, right? And the colors may change and what have you, to show you exactly like this, that would be satisfactory to the design that you see in this rendering. Would that be a
I'm not going to try to speak for all our members, but I recognize we operate in a virtual environment right now, so you can't come in and bring me a stack of bricks at this point and say, here it is. You can't bring me a color sheet. So obviously spec sheets for materials like, doors, windows, light fixtures, those things that come standard when obviously you're doing any construction work. Things like the sample sheet you provided for the brick, I think that makes perfect sense as well. When you're using something like a stone type, we recognize that stone types are going to have variability depending upon the type you're looking at. So I think that's really what we're looking for, is this is the information. That we're coming from here. But again, I'm going to go around to the other members to let them ask any questions. I see Mr. Plumpy has his hand up, so I'm going to let him hit you with any questions he might have.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's really not so much questions, but it's just comments. I think I'm looking at the site plan that I was looking at, your grading plan and so forth. In your rendering, you show a walkway going from the front door to the driveway and so forth. So if you could, when you come back and do your elevation, when you do this approval or another workshop, whatever, if you could show the walkways that are actually will be coming from the doorways and so forth, so we know what pavement, because that is seen from the roadway from Poplar Road as well as pretty much from Poplar Road. And also, if you're going to do any kind of fencing or columns, entry columns at the end of the driveway or something like that, you know, whatever you're going to do architecturally that is more than just the building that's in the landscape. It'd be great to see that too in your next presentation or going for approval. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
That's a fair point. Okay.
All right. Any other members have any comments on the workshop session design that's been presented?
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a workshop session, so it's much more informal.
Okay, so
absolutely. Go ahead.
So we have this pool in the back, and there were some comments in the previous discussions about having a fence around the pool.
Enclosing for privacy.
Right. Provided the area where the house is and the site, do you still require us to have some sort of a fence, or are we okay without having one?
Well, I think you
code
would,
requirement.
I think for privacy, you would need a.
It's a code requirement to put a fence around the pool. So we want to know what kind of, what are they going to influence what we're going to do? Do they have any?
What would be their preference for the fence?
I mean, you could do a glass fence around that pool. And what could they say about it, right?
All right. Joe, by all means.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, to that, I do a lot of pool designs and so forth. I think, first of all, locate where that fence wants to be, number one, and what other fences on the property would do, and then let us respond to that. Show some precedent imagery that the types of fence you'd like to do there, then we can comment or approve. So right now, we have no idea where you want to put your privacy fence or your pool fence. You know, I'm just saying, yes, it could be glass, it could be wrought iron. By code, I think for this pool, it is rectilinear. You could do a pool cover just like the other previous application and get away with no pool cover or a 4-foot high fence minimum, I believe, but double check with the health department, not the building department, but the health department with Fairfax County. They'll tell you what the regulations are. Sometimes I'll have you do a 6-foot pool fence for a public pool or like in an apartment or a condominium. This is a private area. I honestly, but also think about this, liability. You know, someone going to walk along these roads and some little kid go in there when the pool cover is open or something. So you got to think about what's code, but then what is, how much liability do you want to accept down the road?
And to your other question, I'm going to get to Ms. Murray, who put her hand up as well, is I would say in the other prior application, we were dealing with a property within an HOD that has a very discrete and focused landscape and environment set up for how it interacts with the other properties that are all contributing properties to that historic district. You are building a new property in a historic overlay district that in this portion of the lot that is screened significantly. So I think it's more, I think Joe's comments about making sure you're meeting the county requirements, and then obviously give us something to react to on that front about what, you know, obviously you're working with a client to make sure you meet what they are looking for as well. That's going to be more of a concern, I think, on that front.
We will address those.
So you're mostly concerned about the street view from, you don't really care so much about the rear of the house? Is that right? Is that what I'm interpreting?
I mean, what I'll say is I think the ARB likes to see good architecture in our historic overlay districts. And while the main thing that is going to be seen is the front facade from the main is going to be seen as something from the right of way. I personally, I'm an architectural historian by profession, wouldn't want a house that was designed poorly in the back and well in the front. But that's my 10 cents on that. But I'll let Ms. Murray give her thoughts since we're doing a workshop real quick. Ms. Murray.
So,
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
One thing of concern is this building will be visible from 123 as well as from Poplar Lane. So we're going to need to know basically what one will be seeing from 123 and from Poplar Lane or Poplar Road of the house. And that's where the backyard does become important. The other thing that we're going to need to see is your light fixtures. Because you have a few in the drawings on the front, there's absolutely nothing in the back. And I can't believe you're going to have a pool area with absolutely no light. So those things will also need to be included as part of the approvals.
Okay.
And that's my 2 cents, lighting.
Understood.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Mr. Plumby.
Yeah, sure thing. Miss Murray just took the thunder out of what I was going to say there, because yes, pretty much all four sides of the house is going to be visible from either roadway. So I think it's important to have a good attention to detail to the back, especially the end of the building that faces Ox Road, and of course the front for Poplar Road. I think it's a four-sided view shed, so you got to be careful. And I would make sure that it looks good on all four sides. And again, look at the fencing. If you want to screen out more than just the pool with something, just let us know where you want to put that fence and work out with the grade. We can't design it for you, but again,
No, we understand.
Okay.
I was going to ask you the question, or the ARB, the question, would it be okay if we actually fence the entire property versus just the pool? And would that be satisfactory, or would we need a separate fence on the pool? Because I think if we did the perimeter of the property, right, as a fence, is that satisfactory to the ARB? Just as a
like putting a
one
gate,
option
like you're talking about putting a gate and putting a fence around the
property.
Well,
yeah. Like
I get. Do if I take this, Chris? Is that okay? Yeah.
By all means.
Sure. I was going to say it all depends what the fence looks like. If you put in a 6 foot tall white vinyl fence, solid plastic around the whole property, it's going to look atrocious.
No.
And it all depends on that fence. No, seriously. I mean, I've seen it done before. You have the houses down this Ox Road that's done that.
If I did that, my dad would kill me.
Okay, that's good. It's got a father-son relationship. But let's just see what it is. Again, think about aesthetics. If you just have a fence right at your property line, it's going to be in your face around the whole thing, and it may distract from your house. Think about you offset it, landscape in front of it, but let us see what you come up with. But I think caution in the wind is all I'm going to say for it, because this is a natural setting. You have a lot of topography. Think about that first before you go crazy with fence.
This is Hamid Tehrani again. So, do you have any preferences for how the gate and the fence should look like from the ARB point of view? Any suggestion, any detail that you can send us, and we can basically use it for the project? And I can locate on my grading plan. I show where the fence is going to go and where the gate is going to be, and then I'm going to locate the fence around the pool and basically label it as the height of the fence and also the type of the fence. We can do that.
I think if I could make a recommendation, maybe if you come back with us, because we cannot give you imagery. No, we don't have a design file that we can share with you. Okay, so I think you got to come up with what you think it wants to be. My recommendation is to come back for a workshop, to kind of a second workshop to resolve a lot of these issues. Because right now,
I think one that comes to my mind, which could be amenable, and we'll bring it to the ARB, is maybe like a black iron fence that goes all the way around to the perimeter of the property.
I've seen
it. With a gate on Poplar Road, and that sort of circumvents around the perimeter. So maybe something. Maybe some with some
So to give you some, I guess, some guiding points, because we also got two of our other members who have their hands up to kind of give you some direction. I think Mr. Plumby's given a good idea that we can't design for you, but we can give you some reactions to stuff. I will say our guidelines, such as they are, that exist for this historic overlay district, are helpful even in just a description of the general characteristics, which do describe it to having a rural character, giving it a village feel, informal, more aimed towards landscaping, natural. So those are the kinds of things that when a new construction is proposed, we want them to look at those guidelines and be reflective of those. What does the character of the HOD represent? So if you look at the guidelines that do exist for this HOD as they are presented, they do give some general themes and thematic notes that I would take inspiration from. If you're thinking of a concept of fencing the entire lot, then how is that fence going to be indicative of those guidelines? How is it being informal, or how is it representing the natural landscape? As Joe gave an example of what we would say is absolutely not. Full vinyl fence, bright white, definitely not. So there's a lot of latitude here, I would say. That's why they're guidelines and not rules.
Understood.
So
well taken.
And so I don't, given the fact that we don't have something to kind of react to from a fence perspective, rather than going into that, just take that as your inspiration to work with. And then I'll let, I believe it was Miss Orr, you had your hand up first, give your thoughts. Kay, was that, when I have you right?
Yes, and I just wanted to reiterate what you had earlier said, is that you've got to treat us like you do the county. When you bring drawings to us, they need to be construction drawings, not concept. This is a pretty picture, but we don't build from pretty pictures. We build from construction drawings. And so when you come back, I mean, for the final, we want to see the construction drawings that are being permitted. Just put it out there for you.
We will. No, I appreciate that. And I apologize for being a bit conceptual on this meeting. I don't want to say we were not prepared, but I think we wanted to get our site plan approval, and we were somewhat in the middle of completing our architectural, and that's why we wanted to put this at the workshop and get your guidance before we come back to you for an approval on the architecture.
So I guess my question is, I understand that we're going to be submitting the full construction documents for the building. But is that the final approval? Is it coming from ARB or is it coming from the county when they review their building plans?
So, yeah, I was gonna say, the county, for it to approve your building permit, will be seeking our approval on that plan set. So they will need to have that. Denise will have to be able to show that we have, approved them for the county to go forward with their approval of your building permit. So as Kay indicated, what you're going to be submitting for that, we're going to want to see, particularly when it comes to new construction. We really do want to know exactly what is going to be built. And I don't want us to, you feel like the rendering, there's nothing wrong with the rendering you're providing. You're saying, hey, this is the idea we're going with. That's fine. But as Kay has indicated, and as Ms. Murray has indicated, we will eventually need something that says this is what we are going to build. And so when the county is willing to approve it, they will be asking, well, it's in a historic overlay district, has the ARB given its approval to it as well? Hopefully that gives a little clarity from that angle.
So if I may ask a quick question. When we do proceed with getting our final drawings to you, would it be acceptable if we provided elevations and drawings in what you see here with markings of what type of brick and showing examples of what it would be?
They want to see construction.
They want to see the full. They want to see the full construction documents for the building.
Okay, perfect.
Then you can build from it.
All right, so we'll work on that.
Right, but let me ask you this: can we submit simultaneously to ARB the final construction document as we're submitting to the county for the review? And then obviously, unless you approve the plan, the county is not going to approve it. So is that something that would be acceptable to save time and meet our work construction schedule?
Denise, you tell me. I've never submitted anything to the county for a building permit.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let me cut to the choice. Let me cut to the chase. Hold it. So are you going to do a technical review? Are you going to look at the wind bracing, the structural foundation, flashing, all that? I mean, is that what you care about? Because that would be like you're doing.
We're architects. We love that stuff. Not all of us, but some of us.
What I might do for a drawing, you might not find acceptable, and in my past code, you know what I mean, or my past building plan review. So I don't know what level of detail you're going to be looking at, and what your are you going to have a discussion about whether a floor joist will span this or that? I mean, I don't know how far you're going to look into it.
We're not going to evaluate. We're not going to. Excuse me. This is Steve Kolinsky. We're not going to evaluate the technical merits of the construction documents, but we are going to evaluate the aesthetic merits of the construction documents.
That's okay. That's
the rendering that you have up on the screen right now.
Yeah, that's not good enough. That's just
does not match. That does not match the drawings that the two-dimensional line drawings that you had shown that were. Yes, those.
It doesn't.
You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right. It does not.
Yeah, from Robert Sastro, architect. I would say rely on your architect because the detailing, the scale of this, the fenestration, all of those things are significantly better on these two-dimensional drawings than in that rendering.
The
And
rendering,
as architects on the board, we can see that and understand that and know what to expect from what you're going to build.
I think you answered my question exactly just now, which I was asking earlier. If we were to show you this drawings and showed you exactly what type of material we're using where, based on this drawing, I think we would be okay.
So if you're gonna do a rendering, you're gonna go and get this drawing, the architectural drawing, the two-dimensional drawings that you're looking at
Yes,
there.
and you're gonna do
We're gonna
rendering
send
based
those
on
out to somebody to do a rendering and provide you a rendering that'll look just like those other.
No, we don't have to provide the rendering. I think what Steve is saying, and
Well,
correct me
okay.
if I'm wrong, Steve, is we don't have to send this to anybody else to give you a rendering like this. What we could do is we could give you a rendering and tell you exactly what type of material we're going to use where and give you a material sheet for that particular material, and it would be acceptable by the ARB. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, a rendering is not a necessity. But
Rendering is not a
I can tell you these drawings as drawn here, as though I could see and interpret them, but I'm also doing it based on 35 plus years of experience. They have the overlay of the section on there. You're going to need to provide one that's just the elevation. It doesn't have the section overlay on it.
Yeah, this is the working drawing.
Right, this is the working drawing.
Right, understood. And just to respond to your question, we have not submitted any building plans to Fairfax County.
Right. This is actually our first attempt to submit anything architectural within the county.
What I'm pointing out is this particular elevation drawing also has a section overlay on it, so you could see the basement foundation walls. You could see the floors inside.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too heavy-handed in terms of the presentation for us to understand what the exterior is going to look like.
I know exactly what you mean. I'll explain it to them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Orr, did you have any other comments? And then obviously, Mr. Kalinsky, I can give you the floor again as well. Okay, I'm not. So again, the ARB has a lot of latitude in what we would be seeking because we get a wide variety of applications, from decks to ADA accessible ramps to wholesale brand new construction to the entire rebuild of a whole portion within an overlay district by a multi-million-dollar corporation. So as you can imagine, there's a latitude of discretion that we want to provide, but as you can see with new construction, our architects in particular are going to want to see something like this. Now, renderings, while they're extremely helpful in some sense, they can also be detrimental because they do end up leading to falsities in the sense that it's, hey, this is what we think it could look like, but the drawings speak for themselves. And I think, as you indicated, the material information that can help us understand exactly what you're proposing. What you brought here today, though, is still fine for us to say, hey, we think the concept itself might not, we think it's, terrible, or we think it's hideous looking, or,
right.
We can give you whatever reaction we want to from this. What I will say, just as my comments on, I think Ms. Murray was very salient in this has a lot of observation points from where it's located. So I think one thing that would be really helpful when you come back, in addition to the drawings you might be providing for construction, is views from those different points to where the lot is. Perhaps having just some object there so we could go, that's where the building is going to be, even if it's just that's a shot towards where the area is and it's wooded, that's fine. But that's helping me understand where this construction is going to be, because looking at those guidelines, and I pasted the new construction guidelines into our chat, it talks about what we're looking for, and it lists 7 different points that are found in our guidelines for new residential construction in this historic overlay district, and they're focused particularly on simple massing to be compatible using particular types of gabled roofs, rectangular window pane pattern. It gives these details, and those are the things that I, as an architectural historian, am going to look at when it comes to this design. And so I will say the current design is a bit busy, and that's my general reaction. Is it is a little bit, it's got a lot going on. I I think it's neat with the porte cochere kind of going in and the thing going over the top of it. That's but it also really does. It's big. It stands out, but it's it's meant to be a big house. So in any way that can be made to be a as the minimus as possible, I guess, not monumental in scope, then that's going to make me happy as the architectural historian. I don't want construction in my historic overlay district that is domineering over the district and that is visually domineering. And that's why it gets to Miss Murray's question about, am I driving down these thoroughfares, am I going to see this and go, wow, that's what I'm focusing on, as opposed to the historic property that is there. I know that's a lot to throw at you, but that's just my observation from a design perspective. How can you try to fold these guidelines into your proposed construction?
That's a fair point. Thank you.
Chris, can I offer? I'm sorry, Mr. Daniels, can I offer?
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky, by all means.
Fortunately, you are on the corner of the historic district, and you do not have a direct observation of the St. Mary's Church. So there's a little bit more latitude that you're going to get from us on the design of this house. But I do think Mr. Daniels had the right idea that it is quite busy, particularly in the back. If you tone that down, I think it would go a long way.
Mr. Daniel, do you mind if I add something too?
Absolutely, by all
Sure.
means.
As a landscape architect too, the building's going to speak volumes, but the landscaping, and more importantly, the hardscape that you're thinking about, fence or something, will also do that. So don't go too urban, like with your metal fencing and so forth. This is a suburb area, and it is kind of that historical district, as it says, more of a rural kind of feel to it. It could be a wood fence with stone columns or something like that. Think of what it can be other than something off the shelf, I want to do it, or it could be something less, or maybe less is more. Do it more with landscaping as opposed to fencing a whole property. But if you want security, you got to think about that too. If you want it, you just come back to us and see what you have to look at. Thank you.
Sorry. What was that?
All right, I don't want to take any, I want to allow any, if there's any other member that has a comment they want to provide. I know we're getting long in the tooth for the hour.
Can I ask one question? I'm so sorry.
Yes, absolutely, certainly.
I really do appreciate your comments, and I would welcome any suggestions around toning it down. So that may be a loaded question, and I know it's getting late, but I think we completely hear you. But in terms of the back of the property or the front of the property or what have you, what would be ARB's suggestion in trying to tone it down?
Not to be that busy.
Or to make it less busy, because I think when we come back to you next time, we want to be as compliant as possible. We did our homework. We tried to fit in the size of the building to what it would best fit within the restrictions that we have. But we want to be as much compliant as possible with the ARB suggestions. So when we come next time, I'm not saying we hit a slam dunk, but we want to be as close as possible. So any suggestions that you can provide that we could take back and come back to you. And it may be that we are ready for next month, but we'd rather be more prepared and come a month later, but or come too soon. So just want to, maybe get your feedback on that.
Are there any members that would like to provide some feedback on that question?
I could do it, Mr. Daniel.
By all means, Mr. Kalinsky, feel free.
Okay, so this is a relatively minor movement, and it will affect the interior. But in your master bedroom suite, your primary suite on the first floor, you have a bay window at the back. That element is 2 stories and goes up to the roof. If you were to eliminate that,
this right here,
that element, yeah. If you squared that up, I think that would be helpful. It's just a house with a lot of turrets on it right now. I think there's some I think the front is well proportioned, but I think the back has, just a few too many angles and turrets that are a result of that. And I understand that your great room is kind of dependent on having that large projected semi-octagonal bay feature there. So I wouldn't necessitate that you remove that completely, but if you remove the smaller piece there, I think that would go quite a way in toning it down.
Very good.
All right, that's fair. That's a very fair point. Very
you so
direct.
much.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can you, go ahead, Mr. Gillespie.
This is Joe, the landscape
Oh,
architect.
Joe, go ahead.
Mr. Pompey. All I want to say is that simple is better. I like what Mr. Clancy's saying is that simple to design down so it isn't so in your face because of material selections and everything. Keep in mind, this used to be farmland. No, we're not going to create farmland here, but there's a lot of nice, beautiful, modern farmhouses that speaks volumes to simplicity. I'm not saying for you to do that here, but I'm just saying, look at what you could take some things off. I agree with Mr. Colinski's comment 100%. And that's all I'm going to say. Simple is better than getting over the board. Thanks.
I'll also say the two commitments you've made to keeping 2 additional trees, as Mr. Plumpy has mentioned, I think that being, that is going to also add some more dialogue to your landscape, that maybe you want to think about how the architecture works with that, because I do think that is something that can be really helpful, that is he's getting into. Again, we're not asking you to build a farmhouse, but given the fact that this does have that feeling in this historic overlay district, some of the suggestions about a more simpler technique with fenestration, the kind of reduction on the turret, that kind of idea right there. Again, as being an architectural historian, not an architect, I don't have the ability of the fancy words that my colleagues have on exactly those techniques. But what I'll say is right now, it feels castle. I want it to feel less castle and closer to, homestead, maybe.
It's
Chateau.
It's as large as it looks on the rendering, but actually the footprint of the house itself is not that big.
Yeah.
It's the garages and the driveway, what do you call it, porte-cochere?
Yeah.
That's the one that makes it a big house, but the actual
house
living area of the house is
very small.
I'd say about
Not very small.
maybe about 4,000 square feet footprint, or So it looks big, but if you look at the area available on the site plan, it's really not much.
Right. I know.
Understood, and I feel bad for Sonny because he's got to go talk to Dad about it, and that's a real challenge. I see, Ms. Orr, you have your hand back up, so Kay may have a suggestion as well.
On the plan, this it almost looks like your front entry is like on a plinth, and maybe simplifying. See it right on this picture, it is just a few steps up, and it's not, the steps are not all the way around, whereas they are showing here. If you could just, that would help to simplify, maybe just one set of steps instead of all the way around it, might help. I mean, those are kind of big. Those are pretty tall, aren't they? But anyway,
those columns give it a scale that's just a little bit too grand for what we're expecting to see.
Yeah,
It's too tall.
Yeah.
Point. Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's fair.
I guess I'm going to stick it out there is that, do you need such a turret for your entrance? Could you just, like the 3 not dormers, but the 3 parts of the house, the 2 ends and one in the middle of the gabled roofs. I think that's just, simplify that entrance. Maybe that goes a long way, as you're going to push the less steps, because I don't think you need that many steps on your grading plan anyways. But I think if you simplify, again, that, it's not, you're entering a castle, you're entering a nice estate house, like the Hildebrands or something like that, or take a look at historical large chateau houses built in America on the East Coast. I think you'll get some present imagery that could go a long ways to this architecture. You know, I think then we can applaud it as opposed to shy away from it. So seriously,
No, that's a very good point. I like where this discussion is going.
go to Middleburg, take a drive out there. I know Middleburg is far out. These are large, you know, there's homes at the scale, smaller scale, but you're looking for that simplicity design that speaks volumes as opposed to shouting architectural statements.
Well, you know, this is what actually he you know, they selected at the very beginning. They said we like this house without really having any knowledge about that. This has to go through the ARB.
Yeah.
So
we thought we
know,
had the reins.
Yeah. So now we're gonna comply with, you know, because we have all the intention.
Yeah.
To get this plan approved by the ARB and also comply with your requirements and you know, basically for the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the
No, I'll tell you, I think we'll go back to the drawing board. I will absolutely speak to that and we will tone this down, make it a little bit more simple and try to maintain the grand aspect at the same time.
So let me ask you, like, before we come back.
Plus it'll save you money. Plus it'll save you money.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking of that too. I think that's my selling point to my dad.
Now, if I may ask a question, once we make the changes, before we actually go to the, you know, like a next meeting and present the entire construction document, is it possible that we can have some intermediate, send you the PDFs and you can review the changes and then, you know, before we actually come in and officially in front of the panel?
So the ARB does not. So while obviously ARB members can provide preliminary input, that they can't speak for the ARB as a whole, and we don't convene outside because if three of us get together in a room, we have to do public notice and we have to actually set up a meeting. I think it was Mr. Plumpy that said this earlier. I do think this is right for likely a second workshop. That doesn't mean you can't move forward on some of your design drawings if you feel like you've got something that's a little bit more responsive to some of our feedback and bring it in, but you don't necessarily have to come to a workshop with a full set of construction drawings either. I mean, there are applicants that have that kind of ability to do that, but I don't, you know, like the Lorton Workhouse can just do that anytime they come to us. They come with a, you know, basically all the way up to 95%, but yeah.
Yeah,
so
we would like to do that, I believe. Yeah, right.
So yes,
workshop.
yeah, absolutely. I think we will take you up on that offer. We will do a second workshop before we actually submit to the ARB for approval. But having said that, I think we would like to. The site plan, right? The grading plan, we're done, and then as long as we comply with what we have, we can continue on the grading. If everything is satisfied, right?
Of the stairs
and then
the front of
we
the
can
house and all that
exactly we can continue in tandem is my question.
Yes, right.
With the ARB on the architectural work and then on the site plan and the grading plan.
But I believe in order for me to be able to resubmit the site plan, I would need their recommendation approval, which they gave us today, a letter to put on the plan, or is that going to be a letter that we received that it can be incorporated into the.
So we gave our recommendation for approval of your site plan today through our vote earlier. And so that is something that when it does go, if any type of the grading plan information was recommended approval with conditions, if those are met, then Denise can indicate that what we indicated in our recommendation to the appropriate authorities. It's different than the approval we give to a building permit, which is what we're talking about here.
Exactly.
Which.
So I guess my question is, we're not going to receive any letter with the conditions that I have to actually incorporate it into my site plan for the reviewer to know that we got the approval.
Denise, you'll have to tell me what happens after.
Yes, they will receive a letter from me with a stamped approved, the site plan that they turned in, that the ARB reviewed, and it will be stamped. And you'll get that Monday or Tuesday at the latest.
And I have to incorporate it into my second submission site plans, correct?
Yes, and it will have the conditions that the ARB put on their recommendation for approval.
Thank you so much.
That's
You're welcome.
Yep. I'm going to give Ms. Orr the final say on this one, and then I think we're going to close this workshop item. So, Ms. Orr, the floor is yours.
Sorry, just real quick on that front elevation. those two middle dormers that are not centered over those windows. Oh, we kind of like to see center when you've got a dormer. So just, you know, I know y'all are probably working on something that's going on in the inside, but try to work out that too when you're, yeah, those guys.
I got it.
Yep. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Sounds good. Good point.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for enduring with us this late hour and for your receptiveness to our input and comments on this. We look forward to seeing you all back for a future workshop, and then eventually I would expect for an application.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for y'all's time. I know it was late and we're probably in the middle of something that you all were doing on, but thank you so much. We will be back to you guys next month, I think.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
All right. That concludes our item for workshop session. We have no items for presentation. And that takes us on to board and staff items. And so I am going to attempt to move through those expeditiously.
Are we okay signing off?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay,
You can, or you can enjoy our board and staff items if you.
I gotta go put my kids to bed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye,
you so
guys.
much.
All right. First item on the board and staff items is to review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes and a payment of the recording secretary. So I've got you all on camera, but you can all also raise your hands. Does anyone have any comments on last month's minutes? Kay, you've got your hand up, but I think that's an old hand, right? Okay. I'm not seeing anyone saying they just have an issue with the last month's minutes, so if they are acceptable, I would entertain a motion to approve them and pay the recording secretary.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zellman.
I would move that we approve the December 8, 2022 meeting minutes and make payment to the recording secretary.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I think Mr. Burns was a little louder, so Mr. Burns has the second on that one. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Our treasurer's report for starting at December 22nd, 2022 was $23,545.04. Denise, any caveats to add on to that?
No, pretty straightforward.
All right, any comments from members on that? I don't know if you heard it, but my dog groaned, so that's his fault on it. All right, no comments there. This takes us on to administrative items. First one on my list is the National Alliance for Preservation Commission membership renewal. Denise?
So I'm asking the Architectural Review Board if you'd like to renew your membership for the NAPC for the amount of $150.
All right, I'll note that we are continual members of the NAPC, so unless there's an objection, I'd entertain a motion that we direct Denise to renew our membership.
All right, I'll motion that we direct Denise to continue our membership with the NAPC.
All right, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Oh, I think John got you again, Samantha. So John's in the hot seat right here. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Denise, you have permission to renew our membership. All right, certified local government training reporting. I'll say a little and then I'll let Denise add on. Obviously, as a certified local government, we have to be able to show that our members are undertaking training and continue to better themselves in the craft that we assist with on a monthly basis. Denise needs reporting on that for any training you have attended in the last year, correct, Denise?
That's correct. And of course, I didn't write it down, but it's not a calendar year. I think it's October to September. So do take a look at that. It's at the top of the dates are at the top of the form, and the form is, I've sent it to you, and I also dropped it into the share file in the administrative folder. And if I could get those back by the 23rd, because I have to compile it into whole report, which needs to be to the state by the 31st.
And to maintain our CLG status, we also, as board members, have to keep doing that. So yes, please, if any training you've undertaken, please send that in to Denise.
Thank you.
All right. Heritage Resource Planner 2 update. Denise, have we hired anybody yet?
We haven't, but we have interviewed, and we will be scoring the interviews early next week. And with any luck, in February, we may be able to make an announcement.
That's fantastic. Hope to hear about that. I will say I've reminded Leanna a few times that our priority is, once this position is hired, that the guidelines is item number 1, and Denise also agrees. That is the first thing we need to get done once Denise has support. All right, any other administrative items, Denise?
No, not.
All right, discussion, updates, and reports. The Brian Moore approval DHR conflict.
So John may need to recuse himself for this because it's a oh, wait, you are not a tax credit reviewer anymore. Maybe you don't. Wait, he's still shaking his. Yeah.
My retirement is not effective until January 31st. So.
Okay, so just so you would be, yes.
All right. Well then, yes. Then John will need to step away. Denise, I'll try to summarize for folks.
Yeah, that would be.
We had the child care facility at the Lorton Workhouse come to us, and we approved that with some conditions. VDHR, both the tax credit reviewer and the Marcoma, the other reviewer, disagreed with some of our recommendations regarding the fencing and the metal screening, the metal decorative screening, and those things they felt like were not conducive for the historic property and the workhouse, and so disagreed with our recommendation. And so I think Denise is seeking our guidance on are we willing to approve it with that requirement, given the fact that DHR's recommendation is contingent for tax credit approval. So basically, we're in conflict with the state body on those 2 items. Denise, have I got it all correct in that summary?
Yes, that's correct. And I think, if I may, Chris, offer a potential path forward if you all are amenable to the DHR's requirements. We could, I'm going to have to review the submitted application against what the Architectural Review Board has approved, and they will be different. So what I need is the applicant to come back in for maybe as a consent item in February with the fencing removed, or actually changed. They're asking for the same kind of wrought iron fence that you have on the one side be put on the other, and not have that privacy screening, and then those decorative panels taken out. So it would need to, the application needs to conform with what the ARB approves, and I need a consent of the ARB approval for the changes that DHR is requiring.
So I look to discussion from all of us. I think we all agreed that we like the proposal that the workhouse put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let me say this as, and then we're going to dovetail into the master plan here shortly. I know there's already talk about doing some things that they will reject DHR. So, this is going to put us at odds quite a bit down the road here, especially with the Lorton Arms master plan. I think that's, who has the upper hand here? Do we have to do what they did, or we just agree to disagree and whatever?
Well, if they want the tax credits, then they have to have their approval.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, that's.
So it's this thing we don't have the hand on.
Yeah.
Let it be shown for the record, Mr. Daniel was doing a sign of money in his hand, that's where the,
It always comes down to money.
Hey, Chris, let me ask you this. Is it the deletion of all tax credits, or just a small portion, like 2% or 5%, because this is a very small portion to the renovation?
I don't, Joe, I wish I could say I am not a tax credit reviewer, so I'm not quite certain what that affects. Yeah. But I think it does. The problem you run into is that when you're going for those tax credits and the process, that if you don't have that paperwork, then I think they could get rejected, and I think that really the financial people get very anxious.
Yeah, no, and I understand because we deal with the developers on the tax credits, but I mean, it's going to be, this is going to come to a big head with the master plan effort. I can guarantee you it will be.
Elise?
Well, if we have to go to the advisory council, we go to the advisory council. My feeling is that VDHR is wrong-headed on this because it is an industrial site. It's a penitentiary. They want to put in high elements of style. We're going with more of the lower industrial look. However, I'm not going to fall on my sword on this. So if they must have the wrought iron fencing, which I think is awfully posh for a industrial facility, then it's not worth falling on our swords over this one. We probably will want to fall on our swords over some of the master plan, and we've already prevailed over VDHR on the demolition of the original workhouse. The Architecture Review Board's concept was clear it out, and VDHR very much opposed to that, and this group prevailed. So anyway, I'm willing to give on the child care center, but I think they're silly.
Okay, so Elise gets to the fact that this historic overlay district is actually governed by an agreement document that was executed. It is not an official historic overlay district. It is treated like one, but is governed by a legal document that was put into place, which is a unique circumstance that then can require the involvement of the body that I work for, which means then I'm like John, I'm going to disappear from the conversation as well, because I can't be involved due to all kinds of fund restrictions. But that being said, I kind of agree with Elise. I think aesthetically, I think we have the higher ground in the sense that this is the better choice here. But I think this is a minor feature compared to, as Joe, you've indicated, the larger development plans that are going to be coming in that we may need to try to prevail ourselves much sooner on, which could be something we need to be talking with the tax credit reviewer and Mark Holma and VDHR saying, look, we see that this is going to run afoul real soon. We could consent with, like Denise suggested, and provide a comment on that consent that we don't agree, but we will approve regardless. That's how we could make our approval on a consent action if we wanted to. If we wanted to be so contrite as to say exactly why we disagree with VDHR, but I don't know. Any other members have thoughts or comments? I know it's late, but that would be, do we want to recommend Denise recommend they bring it back for consent? Denise, I'm not seeing a rejection, so I think if you tell the applicant to come back to us as a consent item, we can vote on it and perhaps provide our observations on it as we feel fit. But I think the larger discussion is going to be what you brought up, Joe, the bigger development plans they're looking at here in the future.
Right. Before we vote and approve it at the next meeting on the consent item, it'd be good to see what the architect has changed it to, so we know what we're consenting for.
Yes, we would just like any other consent item. Denise would provide us with that set of plans.
Yeah. And then if you wanted to discuss it, you could pull it off the consent agenda and put it into action. It would, Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay. What is next on our agenda? Lord and Workhouse Master Plan. Look at that. All right. Oh,
Go
John.
ahead, John.
Burns. Mr. Burns.
I did not participate. However, I could hear the discussion. I think I may in the future continue to want to recuse myself because that sounds like a rat's nest. Joe, in response to your comment, can't they just reduce the amount of tax credits they get? No, tax credits are all or nothing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So that's it. And it's not just Mark Holma. They have to then go through federal tax review if they're going for the federal credits. And the reason why that's important to them is the Virginia credit is 25%, the federal credit is 20%, and you add those together, that's a whole lot of money.
No, I totally understand. So, dovetailing into the workhouse, I just want to say this is that, well, first of all, there's a presentation on February 15th at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. in person. It's the SHRET number 2 at the Lorton facility. They're gonna, the key things are how much density feels right for the campus over time, what mix of amenities and land uses are right for this campus, what aspects of each option best supports the campus vision. Those are all developer-driven type things. Okay, there's a public-private partnership that's going to happen. My concern is if DHR is going to do this for this one little applicant that we just talked about, I mean, they're going to, I mean, nothing's going to happen in Lorton Prison that's going to be than what we have right now, because there's some serious visions that will still keep everything intact right now that has been reviewed, but there's some nuances that would add funky art, funky things like that screen and so forth, and that is going to have direct visual contact with the public. And if they just want to have wrought iron fence and keep it like this, I mean, they would like to put some trees in the quad. They'd like to put some, you know, unique shade elements that are not disturbing. I mean, there's a lot of, if DHR is the approval thing, then God, just present the master plan to them. So, because they're the ones who are going to approve the money to make this thing happen, or part of the money to make this thing happen. So sorry, I'm getting vented out, but I can just see this being, as what they say, a very difficult road to toe to get any master plan done. And then the president will die on a vine, perhaps. Just saying. That's all.
Hey, Joe, do you know if VDHR is being invited to those charrettes? Because
you know, what's very interesting is you know, that's a good question, and I can reach out to the private consultants who's doing it, because, you know, to this day, I don't think so, and they're making they're making a huge mistake if they have not, because they're just spinning wheels, in my opinion.
Oh, because I know we have a well-versed tax credit reviewer on our board, but I know that there's a lot of diversity in how one applies those standards, and I would hope that VDHR wouldn't want a property to die for the sake of for not finding a way to dynamically meet those standards. And so if we can involve them in these discussions early, then maybe they'll have more understanding.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with Elise that this one, the last one we were on, it was not a hill to die on. But if we're starting to get into if there are options that obviously press, you know, hey, this is a little different, but it does have the property being reused. Where's the give and take on that? And the more that we can involve VDHR in these discussions, and we don't just have Richmond engaging us from afar, because that's my biggest worry, is we have someone, you know, south of us going, hey, this is what you're doing. We don't like it because we just saw it submitted to us, as opposed to we actually got to take part in the discussion.
Precisely. I think right now, and John, I know you got your hand up, I just want to just finish, is that after this charrette, I think they're going to come out with one master plan that's still not the final one. Maybe that's the time, hey, let's go to VDHR, get some initial knee-jerk reactions or whatever. You know, again, this is a master plan, but VDHR seems like they get kind of hung up on the details of what aesthetically what things are made out of and so forth, unless have master planners on their staff that they can see what's going to happen. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
One thing is in the federal regulations, at least, I presume there's something parallel in the Virginia regulations. It says that owners are free to proceed but they do so at their own risk. In other words, if they don't consult, they assume the risk. And to my mind, a master plan is something that encompasses all stakeholders. And if it's a master plan that doesn't involve the two ultimate review authorities, that's not a master plan.
Exactly.
That's a master concept. That's not a master plan.
Right, and they're designing in the vacuum. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that I will say that tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday. I'll make sure that I speak to the architect to see if they've already approached them.
Yeah, and then one last thing is that Tax Act reviewers do not like surprises.
Yeah, good point.
If you make them feel that they've been engaged in the process and can make, even in some small way, a meaningful contribution, they're far more likely to be receptive to what you're proposing. If you sock them in the face with some big, massive change, they're going to get the hardened reaction, and you're going to have trouble for the whole rest of the project.
Sure thing. Let me say this. I just want to add one thing. Is the gentleman in charge of financing, you know, shared, you know, contribution monies from the Fairfax County standpoint, which I assume he has VDHR contacts, is involved with the master plan 100%. He's actually helping direct this effort as well. Joe LaPlatte, I think his name is, with Fairfax County.
But in the end, at the very end, the governing document here is a memorandum of agreement that the Fairfax County government executed with the advisory council and the federal government over what the future of this is going to be. And that lays out who does what and who has what responsibility and who oversees what. And, you know, that's like an RFP. You got to go back and read that, so you know who you have to please in this whole process.
Okay, no problem. Again, I'm going to speak with the architect tomorrow to see what she says if they've engaged VDHR. I will strongly recommend them to start getting them in the loop, because no need to design in the vacuum. I think it's a great idea, John.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Any other members have comments on this item? Otherwise, I think got a road ahead of us and 5 minutes left in our meeting. All right. I love it. Great. Thanks, teams. All right. Let's speed through this. Reston Master Plan Task Force. That's my update. I am having a meeting with the county staff on their updates that they are planning to propose to go forward, so that the plan is going to be picked up eventually by the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. So I don't know much about that yet, though I will say the heritage section was very minor changes. The only other update I'll just throw in there with Reston related particularly is in February, Denise and I are going to meet with the Reston Association Design Review Board to introduce ourselves to their new members and say hello and kind of help them understand who we are and how they can appropriately engage with us, because I think there are several misunderstandings about what we oversee and what we do. And sometimes folks assume something's happening at Lake Ann, the ARB has it, and that might not be the case. So the hope is that, you know, just by saying hello to them, the Reston Association Design Review Board will know that, hey, they can submit their comments to us for items for application too. We can take them up just like we do any other design review board that provides comments on applications like Holland Hills. So that's just a little friendly meet and greet. We've already briefed the supervisor's office as well as Denise's boss. Just you know, a little elbow rubbing on my behalf there. Denise, any other discussion or updates?
I did want to mention regarding the Reston Master Plan Task Force that the Planning Commission is holding a workshop on the 26th of this month, again about this. So after, I think Chris and I are meeting sometime to discuss it, but I did want to point that out because it will be televised if anybody's interested in watching the Planning Commission workshop, the new Reston Master Plan.
And they were very interested in making sure heritage was thought about on the Planning Commission. So we had a lot of allies there. All right. Thanks, Denise. Correspondence announcements. I see none.
Nope, none
right.
at this time.
Old business bylaws revision for the August recess. There was a lot of back and forth with that. Jason, update on that?
Denise had reached out to me because the county attorney had reached out to her. And the county attorney's question was basically like, why do you guys want an August recess? And I had to come up with some diplomatic language about wanting an August recess because other committees in the county do that. And we felt this would be the best way that we could serve the community in our other meetings. And that's what I sent back to Denise, who forwarded it on to the county. And that's what I know. Denise, I don't know if the county attorney got back to you after I responded to you or not.
He has not, but I just wanted to make the ARB aware of it's not moving as quickly as at least I had thought it might. I thought it was going to just be a pretty quick process, but we had questions. So it's still with the county attorney's office. It probably will not go to the board in February as I was hoping. So let's hope for March before we get into budget season. And
that's why we planned a long lead for this. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
Be prepared, as the scouts say. All right. Any other old business from any members? Or Denise, obviously. All right. No old business. New business, Lake Ann revitalization study.
Yeah, so I think a few of you have emailed me that you've seen this in the news. The Office of Community Revitalization it has contracted with Street Sense to produce a revitalization study. They're calling it a macro opportunity visioning for Lake Anne. So similar to the workhouse master planning process, they're going to, they recognize that the ARB is a stakeholder and they're asking for a representative to participate in focus group sessions for about a 4 to 6 month commitment. It's not going to be as long as the workhouse master planning process. It's more short term, and I think they're starting. I'm being invited to a meeting in February about that, so I would say after February. So looking for somebody to think about maybe participating in as a ARB representative in these focus group sessions.
I don't know if you saw, I just asked my wife if I could offer myself to volunteer because she's in the kitchen. But I am interested because I was involved in the Reston Comp Plan Task Force, but I don't want to say that I live in Reston, so obviously I have an interest in it. But I know, John, you have an interest in a lot of the architecture in Reston, and Lake Anne is indicative of that. And Samantha, you're also in Reston, but I also don't want to preclude any of the rest of you. And why do we have to have one of us? Couldn't we have more than one of us?
They just asked for one, but I can see if there could be two, as long as there's not three,
Well, the only reason I say that is we have a diverse set of backgrounds, from architecture to landscape architecture, to archaeology, to architectural history. So it might behoove them to get an architect at a minimum plus someone else, just because Lake Anne is anything but, not architecture. And I think it's really critical from that point that we have that. But that, obviously, you don't have to say yes or no now. But if there's anyone else that has an interest, please let Denise know and we'll coordinate that, because I think we need to have someone there. All right.
Okay,
I'm seeing lots of
thank
head nods. Okay. Any other new business? Not hearing any. I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
I'd like to make the motion to adjourn, please.
I was going to say, all right.
So move.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nope. Any abstentions? None. I didn't think so. All right, everyone. Good evening. Have a good night. Thank you, Denise. Thank you all.
Peace.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Happy New Year. Yep.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.